All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new here. Thank you guys so much for uh, being here today and hanging out. We have a pretty interesting and I think important topic that there might be a lot of people who are not aware of this announcement that Sony just made. And I wouldn't blame you because Sony seemingly went out of their way to try to hide it and make it just something that not a lot of people are going to know about until maybe their next, maybe not the next billing cycle, but within the next couple billing cycles. If you're subscribed to PlayStation Plus, this is a bit of a different stream. I normally don't stream on Wednesdays, but I wanted to do this one because I don't know. I just feel this is something we have to talk about. It's it genuinely is kind of baffling to me what Sony is doing here. It's not even what they're doing. It's how significant it is and the way in which they're announcing it, the timing of them announcing it, everything about it is just not good. Like I've really been sitting here reading, what other people are saying about this. And of course there's some people, I wouldn't even say defending it, just explaining it. Some people are defending it. A lot of people are not. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this information with you. I'm going to talk to you about it, give you all the details so you know what it is I'm talking about here. And you know what to expect. Because I believe many of you on the channel are subscribed to PlayStation Plus. So anyway, yeah, I'll tell you what it is. Let me bring it up here. Give me 1 second. Get this. All right, so if we head over to the PlayStation blog, you're probably thinking, really, MBG, this is it? This is what you made a stream for on Wednesday when you don't normally stream, to just talk about the PlayStation? Is it like, yeah, I don't know. For some reason, my screen is frozen here. I have no idea why. Let me refresh it real quick, and we'll read this. Did it correct itself? Okay, there we go. All right. Anyway, sorry about that. I don't know why I did that. But no, we're not here to talk about the monthly PlayStation Plus games. Okay, we're not here to talk about, hey, these are the games, Saints Row, Black Desert, Traveler Edition. No, you wouldn't know it just based off of looking at this blog post, but Sony has hidden something very significant at the bottom of this blog post. And right off the bat here, this is why I'm asking Sony, what are you doing? Because this is not the way. It's just not the way. We're going to scroll past this. For those who are wondering, if you're subscribed to PlayStation Plus Essential, these are the monthly games. I don't know how you guys feel about them. To me, they're pretty much whatever. I mean, the Saints Row reboot, maybe some people will play that. I'm sure a lot of people didn't pay full price for it, weren't interested in it. Maybe give it a try. Generation Zero, I don't know what that game is, and Black Desert Traveler Edition. And then they say here, new pricing changes to PlayStation Plus 12-month plans. So, yeah, they don't put it in the headline up here. They save it for this section here of the blog post. And then they show you the games. And at the bottom here, right here in this section, is where they talk about the major change. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you guys. They say here, we also wanted to let you know that starting September 6th, we will be increasing the price for PlayStation Plus 12-month subscriptions globally across all benefit plans. This price adjustment will enable us to continue bringing high-quality games and value-added benefits to your PlayStation Plus subscription. Here are the new prices for PlayStation Plus 12-month subscription plans. PlayStation Plus Essential 12-month subscription, $80. And then if you're watching the stream right now, you can see the other currencies here and the increase. I'm just going to stick with US dollars. PlayStation Plus Extra 12-month subscription, $135. PlayStation Plus Premium 12-month subscription, $160 US. The new prices for the 12-month subscription will remain at a discounted rate when compared to purchasing the 1-month or 3-month subscriptions over a 12-month period. For current 12-month subscribers, this price increase will not take effect until your next renewal date that occurs on or after November 6th. So for many of you, you're not going to see this reflected in your billing cycle until November 6th. However, any membership changes you make on or after September 6th, such as upgrades, downgrades, or buying additional time, will update your plan reflecting the new prices. You can change or cancel your subscription at any time. Well, at least Sony was kind enough to let us know that we can change or cancel our subscription at any time. So here's what I got to tell you guys. Let's take a look at PlayStation Plus Essential 12-month subscription. $80 US. The increase is by $20. If you wanted to be subscribed for 12 months to PlayStation Plus Essential, it would cost you $60. So a $20 increase. Now let's look at PlayStation Plus Extra. $135 is the new price. The previous price was $100, so a $35 increase. $35 for PlayStation Plus Extra. And to me, this is where it gets just kind of mind-blowing. PlayStation Plus Premium 12 months, $160. Previously, $120. A $40 increase for PlayStation Plus Premium. Now, I really need to ask you guys, what specifically, like, we're going to cover all three of these, but really with PlayStation Plus Premium, what has Sony done with PlayStation Plus Premium to even remotely justify a $40 price increase? That is wild. The only thing I've heard from PlayStation fans are complaints, justifiably so, about PlayStation Plus Premium, basically saying, like, Sony, you're not doing enough for this tier. You're not releasing enough games. Like a lot of people are even questioning why this tier even exists, right? So they're like, $40 more. Oh, man. Now, here's what else really kind of blows my mind here. So let's look at the part here. It says, this price adjustment, this is what Sony's saying, this price adjustment will enable us to continue bringing high-quality games and value-added benefits to your PlayStation Plus subscription service. We are seeing a substantial price increase for every tier of PlayStation Plus, and Sony is not adding anything. They're not adding anything. What are they doing? Well, for those who aren't aware, during Sony's last financial earnings, for the first time ever, they hid PlayStation Plus subscriber numbers. They decided not to announce where their numbers are, whether they saw growth, whether they saw a decrease, whether they're plateaued. I think it's obvious that they didn't see growth. And I think looking at this, it's very obvious that they're running into some problems with PlayStation Plus. I could understand like a $5 increase. Maybe even a $10 increase. Even $10 would suck. But a $20 increase. Now, here's the thing. I don't subscribe to PlayStation Plus for the monthly games. I subscribe to PlayStation Plus so I can have access to online multiplayer. I have said before, granted it's been a long time since we've talked about it, I've said before, but I will say it again, that the only reason most people are subscribed to this service maybe it's changed a little bit, but I would say most people are subscribed so they can play multiplayer games. I'm one of these people. If multiplayer was free like it was for the PlayStation 3, which it should be. That was one of the best things Sony had going for them with the PlayStation 3 generation. I would not be subscribed to PlayStation Plus. Maybe at some point I would consider subscribing to PlayStation Plus Extra to, maybe test out their catalog of games or something. But this is... I want to paint this picture for you guys, okay?
That is some triple
I want to paint this picture for you guys right now. It is August 30th, 2023. Sony has not had the best year when it comes to optics and public relations, specifically PlayStation. Okay? Hasn't been the worst year, but we can all agree it could have been a lot better, should have been a lot better. The year's not over. Right now, their main competitor, Microsoft, they are getting ready to release one of the biggest games that's going to come out this generation with Starfield. It's going to be a $70 game, but they're also going to be releasing it in their subscription service, Xbox Game Pass. So unless you buy the premium edition of Starfield and get early access to it, if you're somebody who just wants to play Starfield, you will be able to do so by paying, $11, I think? $11. You get access to Starfield and all of Microsoft's first-party games. Sony, without warning, just decided they're going to increase the price of their subscription service during a time when their competitor is getting ready to drop one of the biggest games that's going to come out this generation into their cheaper subscription service. I'm baffled, man. Like I am. I honestly would have thought that the only time Sony would announce a price increase this significant, well, yeah, you're right, Gavin. I should take that back. This is the warning. You're right. This is the warning. I guess it still feels so just abrupt, where it's like, really? Like just out of nowhere at the bottom of a blog post. I genuinely would have thought that the only time Sony would ever announce a price increase this drastic for PlayStation Plus would be if they also announced, and we're going to be releasing our games day and date into PlayStation Plus, like Microsoft. $20. $20, dude. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to sit here and make it sound like $20 is an ungodly amount of money. It's not, but it's the principle of the matter here. Right? It's the fact, like, Sony's just straight up telling you, we want $20 more from you, and you'll get nothing in return. That's bullshit. And you know what? I know I'm going to see people defending this, or at the very least downplaying it. Look, I'm not sitting here yelling or screaming. Is this going to end Sony? Is it over? No. You'll see people on the other side of the spectrum say it is. Sony's done. It's not that dramatic. I wish it was, because maybe we would see something change. And yes, people will mention inflation. Of course. But here's the thing about inflation. It also affects the consumer. I get it. Sony's a business. This is about the bottom line. This is about being profitable. And this is a decision that, as a business, they can make. They can say, we're going to increase the price. We don't care what you think. And you can unsubscribe. And that's true. You can. But you know where I draw the line? And this is where I draw the line, where I get genuinely pissed off. This whole you don't have to subscribe notion is bullshit. You do. Let's face it. Like, if you're interested in multiplayer, which, come on now, in the age of the Fortnites and the Call of Duties and everything else, everything is shipping with some kind of multiplayer or co-op anymore. Multiplayer is more ubiquitous than it ever has been. They're strong arming you. And so is Microsoft. You know, Microsoft is the one who started this, and shame on Sony for deciding to follow it. But now Sony's taken it a step further, where they didn't just follow it. Now they're going to be the most expensive. I just don't get it, man. Like, I don't understand why Sony thinks that this is a smart move. I mean, maybe their analytics department, right? Their financial department, maybe they decided that, look, man, we got to do this. I mean, it's worth noting that we just heard recently that apparently indie developers and maybe even publishers are demanding more money to put their games into these services. But I don't want to pay for that. I don't want to pay for that. Like, Sony, the only reason I'm paying for PlayStation Plus is for multiplayer. You take that out of the equation, I don't care about your subscription service. And most people probably don't. Most people are perfectly fine just buying games. So Sony knows. They're not stupid. They know. Yeah, the majority of people here are subscribed for the multiplayer. It's just frustrating, man. It really is. Sony has to get it together, man. I mean, we think about this year. We think about how it's been weaker than normal when it comes to first-party output. Sony did their showcase in May after making fans wait over a year and a half. It was a disappointment. Jim Ryan and Sony embarrassed themselves going up against Microsoft and Activision Blizzard. And literally the day before, a day or two before their competition makes a massive move by launching a massive game, Sony says, yeah, this is a good time. I'm not saying there's a good time to announce this. There's never a good time to announce this. But this is just shady, man. Hiding it in the bottom of a blog because they know. Again, Sony is not stupid. They know that this is bullshit. They know that people are going to be fucking annoyed with this because they should be. I don't know, man. This is not a good look for Sony. It's really not. I mean, we've seen Sony make some questionable decisions, and I think in the past with some of the decisions Sony's made, people were a little bit harsh on them, right? Like, it's not that serious, man. Like, is it really that serious? And in some cases, maybe. In other cases, no. I think people are just running with it. In this case, I do think this is a bad omen. It is. And I know people are going to get a little bit annoyed, but I just got to be honest here. This is a bad omen, in my opinion, because if Sony is willing to do this with PlayStation Plus, I mean, just really not $5, not $10, not even $15, but base increase $20. I just want to remind everybody, Sony currently has 12 live service games in development. And the biggest question we have when it comes to Sony's future is, how is this game as a service approach going to impact the PlayStation brand? What can we expect? Is Sony going to handle it right? Are they going to be extremely greedy about it? Well, take a good look at how they're handling their subscription service. If this is any indication, yeah, it doesn't. They're going to milk their players for all they're worth. And it's going to be frustrating. You're saying divide $20 over 365 days and stop crying. Listen to me. Listen. I'm not saying get out your pitchforks and your torches over $20. Okay, I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not asking you to scream and freak out. I'm not asking you to shit on Sony either. I'm asking you to just understand the message that Sony is sending us, and the message that if we just say, okay, sure, yeah, fine. I just want you to understand the message we're sending Sony by doing that. Obviously, I am aware that doing this stream talking about this, giving my opinion on it, isn't going to change this. I wish it would, but it's not. It's not going to change it. Sony's already made the decision. This is how it's going to be, and I'm sure things are going to go just fine. It's not like suddenly I have no interest in Spider-Man 2. I'm getting rid of my PlayStation. No, it's none of that. But it is concerning. It is, because Sony has me personally in the chokehold here with PlayStation Plus, where I want more than anything to say I'm unsubscribing because this is not worth it to me. Personally, I don't really care about the monthly games. I don't play them. I hardly ever play them. I know what games I want to play, and I buy those games, and I enjoy them. But I also know that I play quite a few multiplayer games. So I have no choice if I want to play those games but to be subscribed. So I wish I could say, like, I'm going to send the right message to Sony and say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not giving you money for this. But I honestly feel like I have no choice. And that's what frustrates me. You know, that's the game we're playing here. So this is the best I can do. This is the next best thing where it's like, you know what? I have a little bit of a platform here. I want to express my frustration. I want to express my disappointment. You know, PlayStation fans have been sitting over here being like, I wonder if Sony's going to announce another showcase. I wonder if Sony's going to have a state of play. I wonder if Sony's going to start talking about Spider-Man 2. And maybe they will. Certainly with Spider-Man 2. But no, right now, this is what we get. This is what PlayStation fans get. Hey, we're increasing the price of PlayStation Plus substantially. Is it true that we pay maybe $20 for things that are what we would consider, I don't want to say less valuable, but when you kind of compare it, right? It's like, well, you spend $20 on this and you spend $20 on that. I mean, a movie ticket's $20, right? Yeah, it's true. But again, this is about the messaging. This is about the principle. If the price of a movie ticket tomorrow was increased by $15, you're telling me there wouldn't be just a little bit more hesitation, a little bit of frustration where it's like, well, that's annoying. What am I going to get for that $15 increase? You get nothing. You get exactly what you got when it was $15 cheaper. You see what I'm saying? It's frustrating. And you know what? Somebody could come out and explain the business side of it. Well, it's like we did the numbers and we did the math and this is, listen, I get that. You know? I understand that this is a business, but this is where, again, I have to draw the line where it's like, I'm not an executive at Sony. I do not work for Sony. I am a consumer at the end of the day. And for as much as I try to be understanding of the business side of things, this is especially frustrating for me because I am not really pro subscription service. I don't mind them. Like, I think they're fine. They're just another option. But I don't like that Sony made this decision and decided we're not going to be adding any benefits. We're not going to be giving you more. We're just going to be keeping things the same, and we're going to be taking more money from you to keep the status quo. You know what I would say? Hey, Sony, I'd rather you take one game a month off of PlayStation Plus Essential. Make it 2 games. Hell, make it 1. I don't care. Make it 1. And keep the price at $60. Because or better yet, I would even take this. You ready? I would even take Sony coming out and being like, we have a new PlayStation Plus tier for $40. And I still think this would be absurd, but it still would be better than this. For $40 a year, you get to play online multiplayer. It's still messed up. It's ridiculous that we have to pay for online multiplayer on consoles we purchased. But I would at least take that over this. Because now my only option is $80. Let's face it, I'm going to have to pay $80 a year now to play multiplayer. And that is just so frustrating and annoying. And, you know, I was under the mindset, for anybody who's been listening, I'll read these super chats, by the way. I just want to make sure I get all my thoughts out. I've been saying recently that I thought Sony was just going to lie low, kind of go in the shadows, not really do much while Starfield released. I would have never guessed that they're actually going to come out and announce bad news. Because let's face it, this isn't good news, right? And this brings up the question, because I even mentioned it myself. I put out a tweet or a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, where I listed the price increases. And at the end, I said, Jim Ryan truly is out of touch. And I got some feedback from people, and they were telling me, like, dude, this isn't just Jim Ryan. It doesn't really work like that. At least that's what they believe. And maybe they're right. I don't know. I don't work for Sony. What I do know is Jim Ryan is the CEO of PlayStation. And as the CEO of PlayStation, the buck stops with him. But I do understand that there were probably people in the financial department working underneath Jim Ryan. They crunched the numbers. They did the math. They presented that to him, and they said, this is probably what you should do. And Jim Ryan has to make that call as the leader of PlayStation. Do we do it or do we don't? But I assure you, Jim Ryan very much has the decision to say no to something like this. And when we see things like this, it makes it very clear that Jim Ryan's only intention is to keep the shareholders happy. Something that PlayStation fans have been very frustrated with, even the most diehard loyal fans. Just to emphasize how bad it's been in this area of communication, some of the most diehard loyal PlayStation fans have expressed immense frustration over PlayStation's lack of communication with them and with the wider PlayStation audience and consumer base. And I can say, as somebody who's been following PlayStation for many years now and covering them, it's 100% true. Like, it is the worst it's ever been. I mean, it's almost like Sony actively tries to avoid engaging with their core fan base. Like, engage as little as possible. Jim Ryan doesn't really speak that much. Herman Hulst, the last thing he said was on Twitter after the PlayStation Showcase, basically celebrating how good the showcase was, and he promptly got wrecked in the replies below. People, PlayStation fans being like, what are you talking about? That was not good. And he just disappeared. Shuhei Yoshida is in charge of indies now, so, he clearly doesn't have any power at Sony, really very little. And that's it. That's it. The only communication we get from Sony, the only interaction is through these blog posts. And even here with these blog posts, Sony's trying to hide things at the bottom. And just to highlight this point, just to show you how bad Sony's communication has really gotten, at least compared to their competitor in Microsoft and with Xbox, I have this tweet up here, or this post. Windows Central Gaming reports 22 hours ago, Xbox is making moves to improve relationships with Japanese developers and publishers, hiring a combine the word former and Sony, a former Sony vice president for a position leading Japanese partnership operations. Now, I looked into this a little bit, and this is a very significant move. Sony lost a 20-year veteran vice president to Microsoft. And this individual is going to be leading Japanese partnership operations. And what's so ironic about this is that people have been begging Sony to do more in the Japanese gaming space because ever since Jim Ryan took over, they've been seemingly neglecting it to some degree. Let me get the name. I don't have her name right now, but here's the point. Head of gaming at Microsoft, Phil Spencer, quote tweeted Windows Gaming Central and said, glad to have Mina, I think that's her name, leading our work on Japanese partnerships for Team Xbox. I also saw Sarah Bond, who is a higher up there at Microsoft, and others talking about this and highlighting it. And there you see just the dramatic, and it is dramatic. Make no mistake, it is quite dramatic. The dramatic difference between the way Sony's executive branch operates and how they communicate and how they interact with the core fans and Microsoft. Right now, not only are Microsoft players and Xbox players celebrating Starfield and super hyped for it, and the executives are, edging that on as well, but they come out and they say, oh, you know what? This is a nice little PR win. We didn't even announce this, but we see that some of our fans are reporting this on major websites like X and others. So let's get behind them. Let's put some wind in their sails. And just like that, it becomes kind of a big deal. And yet another thing that Xbox fans can celebrate. And today, when we get that news for Microsoft, this is the news we get for PlayStation. Price increases. I apologize keeping everybody who super chatted waiting, but I just wanted to be sure to get my thoughts out here and get them out as cohesively as I could. I really don't know what's left to say. I mean, Sony themselves at this point are basically they're not just handing ammunition to the trolls, to the people who want to hate on PlayStation and be toxic. Not everybody is, but for those that are, Sony is not just at this point handing them ammunition. They're handing them like grenades and explosives. They're like hand delivering them. Like I said, I just saw yesterday that Sony decided to deliver a limited edition PlayStation 5, Spider-Man 2 PlayStation 5 to an individual, a content creator or a journalist that hosts an Xbox podcast. So when I asked the question, like, so what is Sony doing? Sony, what are you doing? I really do mean that. Like, what are you doing? Because at this point, I have no idea. I have no idea about the 2024 lineup for PlayStation. I have no idea what PlayStation Studios are working on aside for 2 live service games and Wolverine. And I'm still excited for Wolverine, but still haven't heard anything about Wolverine since it was announced in 2021. I'm still excited for Spider-Man 2, of course. But there's just something critical missing from PlayStation, from Sony. And as each year passes by, especially each year underneath Jim Ryan as the CEO, I've noticed a trend. And that trend is things keep going up in price. Sony keeps finding more ways to extract money from their fan base. And here's the thing, that's not inherently bad, right? Like a business wanting to extract more money from their fan base or their consumers. I get that. That's normal. Microsoft does it too. Every company does it. But the difference between Sony and maybe other companies right now is that Sony doesn't hide that fact. And I used to think that that was a good thing. I mean, I guess in a way, maybe it is. But again, even just looking at this blog post, it seems like they are beginning to try to hide it a little bit. Like, let's put it at the bottom. Let's not lead the headline with that. It's pretty significant, right? Like, you'd think a lot of people would want to know that you're going to be charged $20 more starting November 6th or sooner. If you're an extra player, you're going to be charged $35 more. And if you're a premium player, you're going to be charged $40 more. There's going to be a lot of people who didn't read this blog post, who are not on Twitter to get the news, and they're going to see on their bill that Sony took more money from them, and they're going to be very confused. And you better believe Sony is banking on that. Literally, they are hoping that many people are not going to check how much they were billed. And that's the thing, is somebody misses this announcement because it was hidden at the bottom of a blog post with no headline indicating that there's a price increase. You get charged, let's say you're a premium subscriber, you get charged $160. You notice that's a $40 increase. What are you going to do? You can't do anything. They got your money. You can unsubscribe, but you already paid for it. I don't know, man. I don't know. Just the worst possible news that Sony could have brought out at a time like this. And there's certain decisions that Sony's made in the past with certain price increases and, asking for more money or putting out premium products. And many times I could understand it and I would actually be okay with it. Like a great example is like the $70 price increase. At the time, it seemed really bad because it's like Sony was one of the first publishers to do it. But as we see now, pretty much everybody's charging $70 for games. So it was true that the price for the cost of AAA game development and game development in general is going up and isn't stopping. And therefore, we are seeing that reflected in the pricing. But even then, like that's $10. $10 is $10, but it's an easier pill to swallow, you know? Price of the PS5 goes up. It was frustrating. It was frustrating. And I even said, I think Sony should just eat this cost, man. If your goal is to sell PS5s and get PS5s in people's homes, eat that cost. Keep the price as low as you can within reason. But Sony, under Jim Ryan, they want it to be profitable. So therefore, if it's not, they're going to increase the price. Granted, maybe that will correct itself with this new PS5 model that's coming out. This new PS5 model is going to be much more efficient to produce, and it won't have a disk drive. You can buy it separately, so it'll be starting price $400, at least US dollars. But I don't know, man. I do know. I don't know why I say that. I don't know why I say I don't know. I do know. I do know that this is frustrating. I do know that this is disappointing. I do know that this is the literal last thing I expected to hear from Sony PlayStation at this point in time. I know when I say what I'm about to say, there are going to be people that, will call me a fanboy, call me a clown, say it's cope, say it's hopium. It's fine. But knowing that there's nothing I can do about this, knowing that this is just the way it is, Sony's increasing the price, and I don't plan on getting rid of my PlayStation or unsubscribing because I do play multiplayer games. The only thing I can hope, and I'm probably foolish and naive for hoping this, but I'll at least be honest about it. The only thing I can hope is that the timing, the reason why Sony is like, we're just going to announce this now and rip the Band-Aid off, is because maybe they're going to have some type of good news very soon. We have seen Sony do that in the past. Let's put the bad news out, and then really quick, we'll put out some good news. I hate that tactic because of how effective it actually is. It's true. It works. It's a very effective tactic. Give them the bad news, and then a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, come out with the good news. And before you know it, no one even remembers what the bad news was. That's why I wanted to be sure to do the stream and talk about this because, Sony could be getting ready to engage the marketing machine for Spider-Man 2 starting September 1st. Who knows? The first week of September, maybe. And once they start doing that, obviously, I'm going to pay attention. Everybody who cares about this game is going to pay attention. And everybody's going to forget all about this little section of a blog post, the very ending of it. Everybody's going to forget about it. So, yeah, I just thought it was important to talk about, let people know. First off, just to inform people, to let you know, like, this is what Sony's doing. So if you are subscribed to PlayStation Plus Essential, Extra, or Premium, you're going to have a decision to make. Is it going to continue to be worth it for you with these price increases? Everybody's going to have to make that decision for themselves. Take a sip of my coffee here, and I'm going to read these super chats. Damn, it's a big ass mug. All right, let me see. We have first up here, Pig Roach. with a $5 super chat. He says, "Dang, Sony might as well hold us up by gunpoint." That's a good bottle of gin. Yeah, I like the analogy. Jim Ryan busting in, holding you up at gunpoint, being like, "I'm going to need 20, 35, or 40 more dollars from you, please." Corey in the chat says, "Well, boys, September is approaching. Cheers to the coffee, mate." Yeah. I really I really hope September is a better month for PlayStation and Sony than August, because August was already not a great month for PlayStation or Sony, but just having it end on such a whimper like this is like, geez. Just when you thought it couldn't get worse. Eamon Burns, you're saying, why do you think Xbox fans call Sony's PS5 the PlayStation? Sony has lost my sub. I'm done. I can't blame you. And yeah, I get it, man. You know, the jokes that are made, this is for the payers, the PlayStation 5. Yeah, I get it. It is true that everything Sony is doing is all about being premium. And that's not always bad. Like with their games, for example, I've talked many times before about I have no problem paying for Sony's games because they really do have that premium aspect to them and it feels worth it. The only thing I can hope is that now that Sony has increased the price of all their PlayStation Plus tiers, please improve it. Bring more games to it. You know, you're going to ask people if you're in PlayStation Plus Extra for $35 more. Well, let's see some improvement of some kind, right? You're going to ask $80 for PlayStation Plus Essential. I want to see those monthly games be more consistently good. You know, I don't think that's asking much at all. I don't. I think it's reasonable. We have Jay Pierce. He says, "Bro, Xbox did this with making you pay for online. Xbox Live made so much money. Sony saw the bag. PS4 came with a pay-to-play online. The rest is history." Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, I've seen people do that before. Like, let's blame Microsoft because Microsoft started it. It's like, yeah, Microsoft is guilty in that regard for starting this trend. But when Sony decided with the PlayStation 4 generation that they're just going to follow that trend, they're just as guilty. Sony knew that they could do it because Microsoft did it. People accepted it. So Sony was like, look, that's just money on the table. It's time for us to do it. And this is where it gets so frustrating to see this because now they're taking it further, man. You know, they're taking it further where it's like, I mean, it really does feel like you give them an inch and they take a mile, man. And this feels like Sony taking a mile. It does. And it's so disappointing. It is, really. You know, again, I know people are going to be like, MBG, you're so dramatic. It's not that serious. And look, listen to me. If you're somebody who really doesn't mind, maybe you're not, money isn't a problem. And you're like, I really don't care about the extra $20. Hell, I'm a premium subscriber. I don't even care about the extra $40. I get that. I do. And I think for a lot of people, that is how it is. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, again, every person has to flip over the table and lose their minds over this. Most people are not. Most people are just going to say, look, it's not that big of a deal. And some people might even say it's worth it to them. And I'm not here to argue with you or convince you that it's not. I just want people to try to understand that it is important as the consumer for us to make sure that if Sony decides after we give them an inch that they're going to take a mile, that we let them know, like, we are not okay with that. We are not happy with that. Because if you send them the message that this is totally fine, they're going to keep doing it. They will. And it's not just Sony. It's Microsoft. It's Nintendo. It's every company. This is how it works. But that's, again, That is what is so difficult about this, because it's like, how do we do that? How do we do that? I don't know how to do that. I don't, I mean, somebody could say you could go to PC gaming. You don't have to pay online if you want to play some of your multiplayer games. Play on PC. You don't have to pay for online. That's true, but I know I'm not going to do that. I think a lot of people feel that way. Like, I think a lot of people feel like I'm not going to go playing, game on PC. It's just not something I want to do. That's what's frustrating, man. You just feel like you're kind of put in this corner or this chokehold. Let me see. So, Jay, I appreciate that, man. We have Planet Schlorpian, dude. Thank you for the $20 super chat. Very kind of you. You're saying the price increase sucks, but we got to look at the positives too. Hopefully, the leaked Atreus DLC for Ragnarok is real, but I still think it's preferable to Xbox Game Pass. By the way, Starfield's 1 day before embargo date is a red flag. I would say it was a red flag if I wasn't confident that it's still going to be fine. Obviously you want to see games that, when they're this big and this anticipated, you want to see them announce like our review scores are going to be up a week before the game comes out. That's what you want to see. But I will say, because I know that there are a lot of people rooting against Starfield, and as somebody who's not really that excited for it at all, I will say that I don't necessarily think it's a red flag, because it seems to me that this game is leaking out like crazy, and all of the things that are leaking out, or at least most of the things, people are saying like, yeah, this looks pretty good. Like this is what we hoped for. Maybe there are some people who are disappointed with some of the things that are leaking, but generally speaking, I'm not seeing anybody like throw their hands up and saying like, I'm canceling my pre-order or I'm no longer excited for this. But yeah, it definitely does show a sign when a publisher, lets the review scores go out within 24 hours of the game releasing, that they are nervous that it might get some negative reviews, and that those negative reviews could potentially have a negative impact on the sales of the game. But I think Starfield's going to be just fine. You mentioned the God of War Ragnarok DLC that's rumored. I mean, maybe Sony could be changing things up a little bit. Maybe this could be the beginning. Maybe that's something they're planning on doing. Maybe they didn't want to announce it just yet. Maybe they're going to say, hey, here's a premium God of War Ragnarok expansion that will launch day and date onto PlayStation Plus. They could do that, and that would be quite shocking. Would be very surprising, and it would be a sign that, oh, Sony is beginning to do more day and date than ever before, and they're now beginning to do it with their own stuff. But I don't know, man. Like, we have no idea. The only information we have on this God of War DLC is from one insider who has a good track record, but he simply said there is going to be God of War Ragnarok DLC and it's 60% complete. Outside of that, we have no idea what else to expect. You're saying we have to look at the positives. It's hard to, man. It's hard to. Like, I do try to be a more positive, more optimistic person, but at the same time, like, I won't lie to you, Planet Schlorpian, this does not feel like an appropriate time to try to be positive, because it would be forced. I could force that positivity, but it would be obvious. And it would probably be a little bit cringe as well, because it's like, why? If Sony said in this blog post, if they said, here's some of the upgrades you're going to get, or some of the benefits, or some of the things we plan to improve upon since we're increasing the price, I would say, well, that's a benefit, right? I would at least say, like, at least there's some type of benefit here that we're getting. But they didn't say that. The communication couldn't be more clear. They're just simply saying, in order to maintain what we're already doing, we need to increase the price significantly. And that is, I wish I could say there's some kind of, always with the Nats, man, some kind of major positive here. All I can say is, again, if there's any hope, the hope is that it's not that Sony's going to reverse this, because Sony's not going to reverse this. That's why maybe I sound a little bit defeated here, because it's like, I know they're not going to. But I don't know. The only hope, the only sliver of hope that I have here is please, Sony, like, if you're gonna ask at minimum $20 more for $20 more at the top end, ask for $40 more, make some improvements. I want to see some improvements, some significant improvements to PlayStation Plus Premium. I want to see, again, more consistent games on PlayStation Plus Essential. You know, if you're going to take more money from us, give us more in return. That's how this should work. But either way, Planet Schlorpian, I do appreciate the super chat, man. That's a very generous one, and thank you for the support. We have Oliver. He says, MBG, what if this is a sign that the LS games are around the corner? Maybe for different benefit levels for their multiplayer games to get people into the LS. So for those who don't know, LS, he's referring to live service. This is a pretty good, this is some pretty good speculation. Sony's been talking about all of their live service games that they have in development for a couple of years now. Some of them are already announced, but most of them are not. And we also haven't seen gameplay for the ones that have been announced. That was always kind of the question, right? How many of these live service games are going to be free to play versus how many of them are going to be paid? Well, I think the assumption is many of them, or at least a handful of them, will be free to play. And if they are free to play, if I'm not mistaken, PlayStation Plus is not required. But that's where I think what you say is interesting, where you're saying maybe there will be different benefits for these games, where if you are a PlayStation Plus Essential subscriber, you automatically get, a list of benefits in Sony's free-to-play Last of Us multiplayer game. Now, I will tell you right now, that would be interesting to me because I am very interested in some of these live service games. I know not everybody is, but I'm interested in, the Last of Us multiplayer. You're saying that would be bad? Maybe it would be. I mean, I feel like it would be kind of fair in a sense where it's like the idea of PlayStation Plus subscribers getting just some type of like when I say benefits, by the way, I'm talking about like cosmetic stuff, stuff that's not going to affect gameplay. Maybe like an early unlock for something or just something along those lines. I don't know. I'm trying to just entertain these different notions and ideas of what we could see because I mean, it is true that we do not know how many of these live service games are going to be free to play. And another way we could read this, Oliver, is maybe most of these live service games are not going to be free to play. Sony knows that. Maybe the idea is Sony is banking on the idea that, well, these live service games are not going to be free to play, so we're going to increase the price of PlayStation Plus, and if we maybe we sell a couple million copies of some of these live service multiplayer games. Maybe not at full price, could be at full price, but even if not, and then people are going to have to subscribe to PlayStation Plus to play them. It's a more nefarious aspect, not necessarily a positive one, but Spencer saying, I typically love MBG streams, but I might leave and come back when there's the next topic. We don't need to keep going on about this. All the YouTubers complaining about this is annoying. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, man. It's totally fine. I get it. Like, if people were hoping that I was going to just not talk about it or pump it up or try to defend it or something, I get it. But, you have to take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. And so I hope you stay. If not, I hope you return. And that's the thing is like, if Sony announces a Spider-Man 2 state of play next week or something, it's not like I'm going to go into that state of play being like, but that PlayStation Plus price increase. No, it just because that's not what's going to be on my mind. But right now, this is what's on my mind. I was genuinely frustrated, man. Truthfully. Like when I saw this news, I was like, you got to be kidding me, Sony. Saying thanks for keeping it real, MBG. You don't have to thank me. I mean, I appreciate it. It's nice of you to say that, but it's just it's something that I think is important to discuss, man. It is. I think people just need to accept that Sony is not perfect. PlayStation is not perfect. I think a lot of people do accept that. And I think for most people, you know, you get the trolls, you get the toxic people, and they make it sound like you got to hate Sony. You got to just burn them, light your PlayStation on fire, you know, smash it with a sledgehammer or sell it. Maybe that's a more reasonable thing to do. Like, most people don't feel that way, dude. Like, this is not making people decide they hate PlayStation, but it doesn't mean that they aren't disappointed. It doesn't mean that they aren't frustrated. And Corey, Landiga, the legend. Sorry if I don't sound as enthusiastic today, Corey, but thank you, man. Thank you for coming in and dropping 5 membership gifts. Maybe we can get some W's in the chat for Corey. Really appreciate it, dude. Appreciate all the support you've shown the channel. Let me see. Omen86, what's up, man? You're saying Sony is giving Game Pass subs a taste of the future. So it is true that in the future, subscription prices are going to continue to increase. And what's wild to me about this is that Game Pass is usually considered the better deal and the better offering between the two subscription services, between PlayStation Plus, between Xbox Game Pass. A lot of people will say Game Pass is the better deal. I think it's somewhat subjective because it really depends on which games are made available in these services and how much that means to you. But there's no doubt that the ace up Microsoft sleeve is the day and date first party games. That is the ace up their sleeve. And Sony, they don't have that ace. It's not to say that Sony doesn't put their first party games in the PlayStation Plus. They do, but they come at a later date. And they've been getting more aggressive with it, which is interesting. Like Horizon Forbidden West went onto PlayStation Plus just 1 year after it released, which was fascinating to me. But it is true that for all of these services, the prices are going to go up. What I just simply don't understand is, why is Sony the one? You know, like, why is Sony the one coming out and saying we need to increase our base subscription price by $20? Microsoft did increase the price of Game Pass recently, and for the base Xbox Game Pass subscription, it was increased by $1. You know, I think should actually probably look this up. Just want to make sure I have my facts straight. So it looks like Game Pass Ultimate for 1 year is, seeing here, $196. Is that correct? How much is Game Pass Ultimate for a year? $180 a year. I think it's more expensive now, though, isn't it? Why is it so difficult to find this? Let me just check Amazon. Amazon will tell me. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, 12 months plus EA Play, $165. So it's basically the same as, unless this is on sale or something. It's basically the same as PlayStation Plus Premium. Yeah, and you get EA Play, and you get the first party games from Microsoft. So, I mean, interesting. I guess I'm just saying that, like, it is surprising to me that Sony is the one where it's like, yeah, we're gonna increase the price. You would think that Microsoft would have been the one to have more incentive to make the price higher because they could say, like, we put our first party games there, we're putting Starfield there, we're putting EA, Play in there. So I don't get that, Like I just don't I just don't get why Sony thinks that. I don't know what is driving them to. Maybe, I mean, you could say it's just greed, of course, but I mean, really, like, do they just not care about their competition and what they're doing at all? Like, does it have no impact on them? And Jay Pierce, thank you for that membership gift, man. Appreciate you keeping the membership gifting going. Shout out to you, bud. So yeah, we'll see, Omen. We'll see what ends up happening with further price increases. I almost wonder if Microsoft's like, damn, we could have increased the price a little bit more and gotten away with it. No, probably not. Maybe. I don't know. But if it, yeah, I mean, eventually, that's the thing is like, I could sit here and I could say eventually the Game Pass prices are going to increase. Of course. Yeah, of course they are. We don't know when. Could be years from now. But that same logic likely applies to PlayStation Plus as well. So it's like, it's not like Sony said in this blog post, and this is the last time you're ever going to see a price increase. Like, these are the prices and where they remain indefinitely. No. So the implication is that the PlayStation Plus prices could also go up eventually as well, too. Again. So I wish I could I wish I could take solace in like, oh, well, at least it won't happen again. No, we don't know. All right, let me see here. Second Coming, you're saying, and thank you for the super chat, you're saying, and they're doing this while posting record profits. Yeah, that I'm glad you brought that up, Second Coming, because this is something that I think is actually really depressing about the situation. I mentioned earlier the business side of things. I mentioned how Sony's no longer talking about PlayStation Plus subscriber numbers. They're hiding them for the first time, and it's clear that they're either plateauing or stagnating. They're not getting new subscribers, that maybe they're losing subscribers. It is true that PlayStation is making more revenue than they ever have. I mean, it has just been growth. It's not perfect. Like, this last quarter was a little bit weaker than others, but the point is Sony is not hurting. They're not hurting financially, specifically PlayStation. They're doing better than they ever have. And I really despise that because it's just so blatantly clear that one of two things is happening. Number one, this would be the worst case scenario, and I'm sure many people are going to believe, and I couldn't blame you, that this is what's happening. It's just about squeezing the most out of their subscriber base. It is as simple as, why settle for $60 when we know we can get 80? And I hate that because, yeah, I'm one of those people being squeezed, right? Where it's like, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're going to get 80 from me because I still want to play multiplayer games on this platform that I've invested thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in. Yes. And also have bought many games for this platform. Yes. And I hate that. That is the most egregious, just purely greed driven, where it's like, why settle for this when we can just extract more? And that could very well be exactly what is happening. There's also number two. Number two is publishers and indie developers are now demanding more money from Sony as well as Microsoft to get their games onto PlayStation Plus Essential, onto PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. And so Sony will now have to pay more money to get these games and keep up the cadence, the volume that people have grown accustomed to. And what I don't like about this is knowing that Sony is making more money than ever, PlayStation's making more money than ever. Is this really the best time to offload that onto the consumer? I don't think it is. Now, granted, I don't have insight into Sony's financials. I'm not a businessman working there, but from my perspective, I just feel like it's kind of crazy to see Sony come out and talk to their shareholders, reveal how much revenue they made, reveal how much profit they are making in some areas, and then to just simultaneously say, like, in order to keep up with the demand here, and what's happening financially, we got it. And that's the thing that's crazy to me. It's like the cost that's being offloaded is not a minimal. It doesn't. There's no way this is a minimal amount. I'm sorry. There's no way. There's no conceivable way that Sony is going to convince me that in order to keep up with the demand of PlayStation Plus Essential, that you need $20 more a year. Like, really, from every subscriber, you need $20 more. People lose their minds when subscription services go up in price by like $3 or $4. And Sony's just like 20, baby. Either scenario is pretty garbage, right? Because in both cases, whether it's because the developers are demanding more money or the publishers are demanding more money, or if it's because Sony just wants more money from us, but either way, like the consumer has to pay. It falls on us. And I'm just getting tired of that. Especially at a time like this. I know Sony is not a multi-trillion-dollar company. I know Sony cannot outspend Microsoft. But that's not what we're talking about. Those are hyperbolic statements. That's not what we're talking about. Sony is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that, like we said, is making the PlayStation division, their gaming division, is making more money than ever before. They're doing better than ever before. They can't just eat this cost. They raised the price of the PS5, right? They raised the price of their games. They say we want $10 upgrade fees from PS4 to PS5 games. And the fan base accepts all this. And we say, fine, sure, whatever. But this is what I mean. It's like, but Sony, like, you can't take this one on this one time, And the answer is no. The answer is no, they're not. We can't even find a compromise here. Like, you can't just maybe increase it $5 or $10 at least. No, there isn't even a compromise. This is why it's frustrating. You're saying the best thing to do is don't resubscribe. I know, man, I know. But let me ask you guys here first off, there's over 720 people here, which is great to see. Guys, if you could take a second, hit that like button for me. But I want to ask the chat really quickly before proceeding with these super chats. And be honest, how many of you guys are subscribed to PlayStation Plus Essential for multiplayer and are going to remain subscribed to PlayStation Plus Essential because of that? Maybe I should put a poll. You let me know in the chat, but I'll also construct a poll because I really want to see. It's a long one. All right. I'm going to put the poll out now. Make sure I have no spelling errors. Okay. All right. So you guys vote on that poll, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. I'm genuinely interested to see what it ends up looking like. Let me see. Josh Z, thank you, man, for the $10 super chat. You're saying the price increase is to offset the increasing budget of games. It's unfortunate, but if we want these AAA blockbuster games to keep coming, it's got to be made up some way. Masses keep paying anyway. I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow what you're saying, Josh, because you are not wrong in the fact that game development costs are rising. We did see that The Last of Us Part 2 and Horizon Forbidden West, these games both cost $200 to $220 million to make, and that doesn't count the cost of marketing. When you factor in the cost of marketing, you're probably looking at over $300 million. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. So you have to make probably 2.5 times that to, to basically become profitable, right? At least I guess that's the assumption. So, and the only way that happens is you have to sell a copious amount of copies of your game, and you have to make a bunch of money off your game. And luckily for Sony, they have been able to achieve this. But in doing so, the cost of making these games has not stagnated. It has not plateaued. It's still rising. But the thing that frustrates me about this, Josh, and this is not to you particularly, but just, the general conversation, is that I thought this is why Sony increased the price of their games. You know what I mean? When Jim Ryan put out the blog post in 2020, I think that was the year they announced it, they said, like, we're charging $70 to keep up with the increasing price of video game development. Is this, let me ask you this question, because I think this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Speculation, of course. With what you're saying, Josh, it almost makes it seem as though Sony may be offloading further cost onto specifically their PS Plus subscriber base. Because let's ask this question for a second. The price of a AAA game is $70. The increase was $10 from 60 to 70. If over the past 3 years since this price increase was announced, the cost of development still rose. So what I mean is the cost of making a AAA game for Sony PlayStation in the year 2023 going into 24 is even more expensive than it was in the year 2020, right? Let's say it rose maybe even substantially. If that happened, Sony is probably thinking to themselves, well, there's no way we could increase the price of our games again. Like, we can't go from 70 to 80. It would be suicide. And it would be. It would be. Let's face it. There's no way. So maybe their financial department, and again, I'm not justifying it. I'm just trying to see all the different angles here and just speculate. Maybe their financial department decides, listen, we need to bring in more money because we have more games in development than ever. We have more studios to run than ever. We have more developers that need to get paid. The cost of living's going up. We need to find a way to make more money. I don't know. Maybe that's what they settled on. They're like, look, where could we extract the most and get away with it? And if you really think about it, the way they're doing it, this is how you do it. This is how you extract the most from a group of players that are likely not going to leave. It's through the people like me and many others who are stuck to PlayStation Plus because we play multiplayer. But still, even if that is the case, even if that was the reasoning, which again, that's purely speculation, it still sucks. It still sucks, right? But Josh, there is one thing you say in your super chat at the end here that It is true. And no matter how many Xbox fans or even scorned PlayStation fans, yeah, that's right, I used the word scorned. No matter how many Xbox fans or upset PlayStation fans complain or, you know, make videos, make tweets, make whatever comments saying like Sony's greedy, Sony is, PayStation, the whole thing for the payers, Jim Ryan, greedy, whatever. I'm not saying it's all for naught entirely. Like, I like to think it has some kind of tangible impact, but the reality, unfortunately, for people who, don't want to see this happen is I don't think it matters even a little bit. Um, it, it's kind of like a tug of war in a way. You know what I mean? Um, I think that people who, like myself, but also many of you guys, many people on Twitter, other content creators, I think many of us believe that we are in a game of tug of war at this moment in time with companies like Sony. But I think at times like this, it's revealed that we're actually not. There is no tug of war. Like, we're not engaged in this game with Sony. Sony's not playing a game with us or anybody. And the reason for that is because to say that we're engaged in this tug of war with them implies that we can win. Like, we can, bring them over here. No. The PS5 is doing better than it ever has. It was just revealed by Circana that in the US, the PS5 is now outpacing PlayStation 4 sales when time aligned by 5%. You may think to yourself, well, that's not a whole lot. You're right. It's not the biggest percentage, but it's still 5%. And there's a good chance that percentage is going to increase. The PS5 is more expensive than the PS4. Yes, if you take into account inflation, it basically evens out, but still, $500 is $500. And Sony's games are selling better than they ever have. Spider-Man 2 is going to probably break a record. I mean, the only way we're going to see Sony engage in this tug of war with the fan base and with the consumer side is the day that their numbers really start to drop. Because Sony underneath, or Jim Ryan, PlayStation underneath Jim Ryan, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but anytime things start to drop a little bit, his solution is bump up the price. Get more money from them. And it's been working. It has been working. And I would like to sit here and say that eventually it's going to stop working. Eventually it's going to turn on them. And it could. But the thing that just really gets me here is if there was ever a time where you would think Sony would say, you know what? We're just going to eat the cost on this one. The PR hit, the negative, public image, the Jim Ryan memes. We're just going to take a step back and we'll just eat the cost. This would be that time, I think, because of how good Microsoft is starting to do. Because now people are taking Xbox very seriously. Suddenly, Microsoft has a massive game that's going to compete with Sony in the holiday season. Not saying that, that suddenly Xbox console sales wise is going to catch up to PlayStation. Probably not going to happen. But, the point is, like, their competition is not playing around anymore. So you would think if there was ever a time for Sony to actually very much care about, like, okay, well, we don't want to piss off our fans. We don't want to continue to have a negative public image. And so you're saying that's not how successful businesses work, MBG? Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I might just be too in the bubble, man. I might be too focused from the consumer internet dweller perspective. Because you're right. Devil Shooter saying MBG, meanwhile, PC gets PS games for $60 with no PS Plus required, while PS gamers get price increases. This is why I never liked Jim Ryan. Yeah, that's concerning to me, man. Like, specifically these live service games that are going to launch on PC. I mean, Sony, if you're going to charge a premium price for your multiplayer games when they come out, it's going to be real bad. It's going to be real bad when people like me who want to play these games on PS5, oh, you got to pay $80 a year. Okay, well, how much do the players on PC have to pay? Nothing. What? That might make me take a step back and think. Kevin G, your super chat probably did go through, man. I'm very slow with the super chats today, so bear with me. And Josh, thank you for that super chat. Josh Z, I should say, because underneath Josh Z, we have Josh with a $5 super chat saying Xbox isn't doing well, man. 3-1. And that is the exact reason PlayStation is rinsing us. You haven't noticed all of PlayStation products are very expensive. Well, Josh, I think you are on to something here because I did talk extensively yesterday about how Microsoft is completely removed from Sony business model wise. And I think the idea that people had, including myself and I think many others, is that, okay, well, Sony's going to try to match Microsoft, right? Like Microsoft is trying to go lower and widen the door so more people can come in. So Sony's gonna match that, right? And that I think we've discovered clearly by now that like no, that's not Sony's plan. Sony's plan is to remain the market leader and as the market leader continue to be more profitable, to make more money. And it's a dance, really, because it's like you mentioned how all of PlayStation's products are very expensive. It is true, like the DualSense Edge, which I just recently purchased, is expensive. And the reason why I was okay purchasing it is because it felt fair. I looked at what it was offering and I thought, okay, that seems worth it to me. And I've been using it ever since, and it has felt totally worth it. So stuff like that, I think is fine. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't mind a company that's like, we want to create certain premium products that, if you want that, it's there for you. Even something like the PlayStation Portal. A lot of people are saying, like, that's totally not worth it for $200. And I get that. Like, if that's a questionable product to you that you're not sure if you're even going to use, of course, the idea of just spending $200, something you're going to want to think about. And for a lot of people, they're going to think, well, that's not worth it. But for others, it is going to feel worth it. You know what I mean? For others, it is going to feel like that's totally worth it for me. And I don't mind spending that $200. And I think this is okay. But I just think with what's going on with PlayStation Plus, it just, the reason why I think it feels worse is because PlayStation Plus, again, it just doesn't feel like an option, really. If you're somebody who only plays single player games and you don't play multiplayer, then this is nothing for you. This may as well be the equivalent of the PlayStation Portal, where it's just there for those who want it. And Omen86, dude, thank you so much, man. Omen did a ton of heavy lifting for this community yesterday when it comes to membership gifts. And so today he returns and he drops 5 more membership gifts. So we're at 11 total memberships for the day. Shout out to you, Omen. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll increase the member count here and we'll continue along. Let me see here. So, Josh, I also want to say before I move on, you mentioned here at the beginning of your super chat, you say Xbox isn't doing well, 3-1. And that is why PlayStation is rinsing us. So you're talking about the consoles, right? Talking about the consoles. And really quickly, I'll just acknowledge this because it's relevant to the membership gifts. Omen86 says, here's 5 memberships. That's $20. Move on with a wink. I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, truthfully, I think this is really the only major topic we have to discuss today. So, I mean, I am getting towards the end, I guess, of everything I have to say. And once I finish this topic, I'm probably just going to hang out with you guys for a little bit longer and chat just more openly. But I appreciate it, Omen. And that's true. Yeah, I guess that's true. It's $20, man. I appreciate it. But there you go. I don't have to worry about it. I'm good. Everybody start streaming and create PlayStation YouTube channels and start streaming. I'm just kidding. I don't do. I mean, do that if you want. But I can't promise that it'll work out. Hopefully it does, though. Best of luck to everybody in their endeavors. But Josh, I do just want to acknowledge here. There is more truth to this than I think people realize, because many people have said over and over again, Microsoft doesn't care about the console race, man. Even Phil Spencer said that himself. They're not in this business to outsell or out-console Sony or Nintendo. And this is kind of unfortunate in a way, because this is why I've had this conversation with people where a lot of people have said in response to the whole Bethesda and Activision Blizzard acquisition that, well, you guys wanted competition, right? It's like, well, yeah, of course. But when you realize that what Microsoft is doing is so different business model wise than what Sony is doing and what Microsoft did previously. And you also realize that just because Microsoft is finding their own success doing it doesn't mean that companies like Sony and Nintendo are going to copy that or follow that. Then you see a separation. And this separation reveals that the competition might not really exist in the same way that we had hoped it would, or in the same way that it was previously. Because this, again, Microsoft has more reason than Sony does to increase the price of their sub-services. And they have. But not as much in some cases, at least with the lower tier. Sony has much less reason to increase the price, let alone increase the price this much. And yet they do it. And if you, I think, read between the lines a little bit and you think about it a little bit harder, I think what Josh is saying here, we're kind of seeing that. Sony's still the market leader. Sony's still, again, outpacing the Xbox console by, like you said, by this point, maybe even 3-1. I'm not, maybe that's a correct number. I'm not entirely sure. But if it's not 3-1, it might get to 3-1. And they're not viewing Nintendo as competition. And that's the crazy thing, is like there is no. Let me back up. I guess what I'm trying to say is that these executives at PlayStation or at Sony, they're seeing the numbers daily, weekly, monthly. And they're seeing that there's not a major change. Like, yeah, we're not gaining a lot of PlayStation Plus subscribers. Right? But are we losing a ton? Maybe some, but it's not like it's, I think some people have this idea in their head that Sony lost like 5 to 10 million subscribers. They could have. They didn't reveal the number, but I'm going to say that's highly unlikely. If they lost subscribers, it's probably maybe 1 million, maybe 2 million, which is still bad. It's not good. But when you consider the fact that Sony had, I think the last number they reported was like 48 million PlayStation Plus subscribers, you realize like that's still a lot. Like that is a lot of subscribers. Of course, they want that number higher. But if they can't get that number higher, right, what's the next move? Make the amount of money you get from them higher. And they already did that with PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium, but now they're doing it again. Doing it again. This time with all 3 tiers. So I guess I'm just trying to say, if Sony felt the pressure of competition, do you think this is what they would decide to do? Do you think that the decision would be, let's tell everybody we're going to increase the price substantially and they're not going to get anything more from it? Pig Roach, you're saying yes. I'm going to say you're wrong. I'm saying that because if they felt the pressure of competition, they would do the opposite. They would say, we're not going to do anything unless it's like dire and we have to survive. That's what Sony did during the PlayStation 3 era. And in some ways, they did that during the PlayStation 4 era. And you know why Sony did that? Because they were under pressure, especially during the PlayStation 3 era. Sony was under immense pressure. And I don't want to see Sony go back to the PS3 era. I don't. That was a dangerous time for the brand. That was truly sink or swim. Like, they are on the ropes, man. And every decision they make is crucial in whether or not they're going to proceed forward. And luckily, they made the right decisions. But those decisions were very much under pressure and the understanding that we need to win people over. Therefore, you see Sony be more consumer friendly than they've ever been. And they kind of continue that into the PS4. During the PS4 generation, they completely stomped the competition. It was a great generation, phenomenal generation. But with the PS5 generation, we see something different. We see Sony's not trying to win anymore because they've already won. Sony's trying to see how much further they can go. So I guess I'm just saying this because I think people should try to be more aware of what the term competition really means in this context. You guys wanted competition. I know people have gotten frustrated at me before for saying this, and they shouldn't, because it's just the truth, man. It's just the truth. Microsoft isn't looking for competition, and neither is Sony. Neither of them are they're looking for the opposite of competition. And in a way, they're kind of getting it. Microsoft is doing their own thing with their subscription service and their platform, completely different business model. And they're finding, granted, I don't know that they're finding financial success. That might take a long time because they have a lot of money that they have to make back. But they're finding at least forward-facing success. And they are experiencing some type of growth. And I'm sure Starfield is going to contribute massively to that. Let me ask you, while Microsoft is finding their own success, and while they're carving their own way, is it coming at the expense of PlayStation? Sure doesn't seem like it. So if you're Sony, you're looking over there at what Microsoft's doing, you're like, okay, well, they're making some moves. They got that big game Starfield coming. They got Game Pass. A lot of positive buzz on the internet. How are their numbers looking? More importantly, how are our numbers looking? And the realization is, oh, everything's great. Everything's still fine. We're still doing good. Okay, well, let's just keep going forward. And that sounds like it sucks. You're saying that sounds like it sucks, and it's because it does. It's like, well, it's good and it's bad. It's good in the sense that we're still, Sony is unlikely to dramatically change their model if it's working for them. And I think a lot of PlayStation fans don't want the model to change. It's like, we want these bigger AAA games. We don't mind paying for them. We want the console to remain the focus as much as it can. That's fine. But it's just, there's also the fact that Sony still doesn't have competition. And I get it. I understand they're going to be Xbox fans that they're going to get triggered hearing that. That I didn't say that Starfield's bad. Okay, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. When I say that Sony still doesn't have competition, what I mean is Sony is not worried about how Microsoft is handling Starfield. They're not worried. Sony knows Starfield is going to have zero impact or minimal impact on whether or not people go out and buy a PS5 and buy Spider-Man 2 and hopefully subscribe to Game Pass, right? But that's the thing. Microsoft also is not worried about Spider-Man 2. Why would they be? Because they have Starfield, and Starfield's going to drive Game Pass growth. Starfield's going to sell perfectly fine. And another thing Microsoft isn't worried about it right now is the money that they're losing, because they know why they're losing it. Microsoft knows that we're losing this money up front because we have a long-term plan, and we hope to eventually not only make that money back in the long term, but make much more profit. It's a very long-term play. I mean, you're probably talking about a 20-plus year plan. Sony obviously has their long-term plans, but nothing like that we know of. Sony still is very much like, how much money are we going to make on Spider-Man 2? Because that's really what matters most right now. Are we making a profit on the PS5 console? Because that's what matters most right now. And now, what about our subscription service, PlayStation Plus? Are we making money on that? So, I get it, man. If you go on the internet and you're on Twitter, you're on these forums, you're on these certain YouTube channels, I understand that a picture is painted that Sony is in some kind of dire position. I think that's probably more in regards to the fan base, right? Like, those pictures that are painted, I think, are more about, well, the fans, right? The fans have to deal with Sony and what they're doing and their antics. And I'm sure videos will be made about this, right? Like about the price increase. And that's why I say, like, Sony's just handing the people that are not for them not only ammunition, but like grenades to lob around, right? There's no defending this. There isn't. You could explain it, maybe. But even then, like, there's just no defending it. And people will say maybe Sony's arrogant. Maybe Sony is arrogant and they're cocky. I don't think it's that. I think it's that they're not experiencing any negative impact. And because of that, they're just proceeding as they would. So I guess all I could say at this point, before I, continue with the rest of these super chats, all I could say at this point is that it's not all bad, and it's not going to be as bad as some people make it sound. Some people might say that I've made it sound very bad. Right now it feels bad, of course, but I guess I'm just trying to communicate that PlayStation's just going to continue trucking forward, and the fan base is going to continue trucking forward as well. Not everybody will. I mean, if I look at my poll right here, I have 509 votes. 60, assuming you guys told the truth here, 61% of the 509 votes, you're saying that you will not remain subscribed to PlayStation Plus for multiplayer. You will not stay subscribed for multiplayer with this price increase. Well, we're going to see. Because I'll tell you one thing. This could be the first time where we see Sony actually take a hit, take a significant hit. They might see a big mass exodus, potentially, the biggest they've ever seen. People unsubscribing from not Game Pass, but PlayStation Plus. Personally, if I had to give my best guess, is Sony going to lose 5 million PS Plus subscribers because of this? No, I don't think so. I think they're going to lose some, yes. But I think that they're going to lose what will be pretty much an insignificant amount when they see how much more money they're raking in from the people who remain subscribed. And I think that's the game. I think that's the play right now from Sony is, oh yeah, we might lose some. Maybe we'll lose a couple million. But how much more money are we going to make from the 40 million, the 45 million that remain subscribed? So there's one last thing I have to say here. And I know I'm being very long winded, but I just want to make sure I say everything I have to say. There's one last thing I have to say here. And that is that if there was ever proof, right? Like if there was ever some kind of proof that people wanted to know, like how committed is Sony to the console and traditional AAA premium game release? This is probably the best confirmation you're going to get of that, the biggest commitment, because I told you guys a couple weeks ago when we heard about their financials and Sony said that we're hiding PlayStation Plus subscribers, we're not announcing the numbers anymore. Sony never did this before. And now we're seeing them increasing the price while simultaneously not giving us any new benefits. It is clear, in my opinion, what Sony is doing. This is them saying, we are not chasing the subscription model. We do not care. In the same way, think about this. You ready? In the same way that Phil Spencer and Microsoft communicated to the fan base, granted it was very explicit, we don't care. Well, they didn't say it this way, but pretty much what they said is we don't care about console sales. We care about subscriber numbers. This is very much Sony communicating, we don't care about subscriber numbers. We care about console sales. Of course, they care about money. That's why the price is increasing. But Sony knows they're going to lose subs here. Sony knows they are already losing subs. And they also know that this is not the path we are chasing. The only wish I have, and I know it will not come true unless there's some kind of crazy Sony miracle. It's the only wish I have. Because truthfully, I really don't. I need to emphasize once more, and the last time I'll say it, that the only reason I care so much is because I despise that multiplayer is attached to this. Because if multiplayer was not attached to this, I would not care about this. Like, hardly at all. Certainly, there would not be a dedicated stream to it. Because to me, it would be like, I would say that exact same thing. Just unsubscribe. Just don't care. Like, who cares? It's a sub-service with games. If you want them, go for them. If not, but this is where that PlayStation Plus Essential hook, man. That's what pisses me off the most about this. But I know there's no changing it. I know it's not going anywhere. I know Sony's not going to come out and say, yeah, we don't care about sub-services because that's not our business model. But that doesn't mean we're going to give up multiplayer. It being attached to this? Hell no. There's a whole new generation of gamers playing multiplayer games that don't know it on console, that don't know it any other way. So let me continue with these super chats. We have Omen86 again. He says, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Sony always said subservice isn't a sustainable business model. They'll do what they have to make it sustainable or stop doing it altogether. Revenue isn't profit. That is true. And I think this was a great time for me to read your super chat because it pretty much just, it's almost, we're saying the same thing here, right? That the Game Pass model financially is very volatile for Microsoft. I know, again, I know people get very upset when they hear that and they get triggered and they want to fight back against it. And I know Phil Spencer said that Game Pass is profitable, and maybe in some instances it is, but look, here's the reality. You cannot say Game Pass is profitable when you just spent $68 billion on what is essentially on Game Pass. That is what the Activision Blizzard deal is about. I know it's about mobile, but it's also about Game Pass because Game Pass is on mobile, right? You can't really say Game Pass is profitable when you're spending that kind of money. It's going, like I said, it's a long-term play. It's going to be many years before Game Pass brings that money back, and that's fine. That's the plan. That's a pretty good plan too, because it's like Microsoft is one of the only companies that could pull that plan off. But Sony is very much operating in the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like, yeah, we're not trying to wait 10, 15, 20 years to make the money back. We want it to be profitable now. So yeah, I think you're on the money there, Omen. Josh, again, you're saying, remember, you can split PlayStation Plus if you game share with a buddy. Ah, that is true. Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of overlooked at times. Maybe this would be a good time to remind everybody. Thank you, Josh. You can split PlayStation Plus if you game share with a friend. Obviously, you have to trust this friend. It has to be somebody that's close to you, maybe a family member or something. Maybe you can split the cost and you can share that PlayStation Plus subscription. So I actually did forget about that. Good time to bring it up. And we have My Name is Mud. Thank you for the $2, man. You're saying the competition is for content, not console sales. Yeah, that is true as well. And I skipped a bunch of super chats by accident. I did not realize how far behind I was. I think that is true. This is more about content. It's more about content than ever before. For Sony, it's still very much about console sales, but Sony is still leveraging the content to sell those consoles. Microsoft is leveraging the content to sell subscription service. That is Game Pass. But yeah, you're right. No, it's no longer about the console wars. It's not about the subscription wars. It is actually about the content wars. If anything, that is in fact, I think, proven by, just the massive acquisition sprees we've been seeing. Big Norman 0518, thank you for the $2. You're saying, sorry, I'm late. What did I miss? You sent that at 1:58 p.m. It is now 3:08. So hopefully, Big Norman, you got a good idea of what we were talking about. Because if it makes you feel any better, assuming you're still here, we pretty much talked about this singular topic for the entire stream. So you didn't really miss too much. Hickzock, you're saying $80 a year for Essential to be able to even summon help in Elden Ring. What a joke, honestly. No PvP in AC6 either. That's good to know, Big Norman. I'm glad you're caught up now and enjoying it. Yeah, see, it's stuff like that's just so disheartening. Because even if you're not like a hardcore multiplayer guy or gamer, right? Like you don't spend money on these games that have massive multiplayer components or communities, but maybe you pick up a game every now and again. And Elden Ring, I think, is a great example of that, where it's like there is multiplayer and it's not really that traditional, right? Like it's for summoning in help, where you can go help other people, or maybe you want to do the occasional PvP. It is crazy to think. That, yeah, if you want to do that on PlayStation, it went from being $60 a year to 80. And I don't know. I guess the only hope is maybe you'll get some good games throughout that year that you wanted. I do want to say, somebody mentioned to me on my post on X, formerly known as Twitter. You know what? I think I'm going to save this. Yeah, I'm going to save this for the end. Because I did not realize this post I put out is gaining a lot of traction and gaining a lot of views, and people are giving some interesting opinions and takes. So maybe at the very end here, I'll head over there and we'll see what some of these opinions and takes are. New Soul 9 Thank you, bud. You're saying MBG speaking about Bethesda. Are you going to watch the Fallout TV show? Or you never got into the Fallout series? No, I'm definitely not going to watch the Fallout TV show. I have had zero interest in Fallout. I understand that there are a lot of people who, I mean, absolutely adore Fallout, and it's one of their favorite game series of all time. For me, that doesn't really mean anything. A lot of people I think chose not to believe me when I said that I really don't mind Bethesda getting acquired because I'm just not, I've never really been deeply into their games, and in most cases, not into their games at all. Not because I don't like them, just because they've just never appealed to me. Fallout is a perfect example of I've never played Fallout. I have no desire to ever play Fallout, and it's nothing against the game. People love it. But I can tell you with certainty that I will not be watching the Fallout TV show. I at this point, I'm questioning if I'm even going to watch the Jack and Daxter movie that Sony's planning on putting out. Come on, Sony. Saying MBG doesn't like Doom. No, I think Doom is good. I've never got really into Doom. I've enjoyed it though from time to time. You know what games I really liked from Bethesda? The Evil Within 1 and the Evil Within 2. I'm really eager to know. If the Evil Within 3 is a game that ends up coming out or being, announced, because that would be very exciting. I really enjoyed those games. Very, very good games. Yeah, if you haven't played the Evil Within 1 or 2, I would recommend it. They're really fun. If you're into survival horror, yeah, that's true. Shinji Mikami is no longer there. If I'm not mistaken, though, he didn't direct the second game, and I thought the second game was really good as well. But hopefully we get a third one. So I guess what I could say, Newsful 9, is if there's ever an Evil Within TV series or something like that, I'd probably watch that. 2 super chats back to back from Pig Roach. He says, fun fact, Bethesda has always done embargoes like this. And you're saying, here's some positivity. Don't let Jim run your pockets. There you go. There's some positivity from Pig Roach. But yeah, I wouldn't, again, that's what I saw some people saying. They were saying that the embargo date for Starfield is actually not uncommon because that's basically how Bethesda does it. I haven't followed Bethesda that closely to be able to attest to that and confirm that and say, yeah, that is, but I'm assuming it's true. Why would people say that if it wasn't true? So yeah, I guess in that case, it's there's nothing really to be worried about. Kevin G, you're saying, what is weird to me is that PlayStation Live Service games will be free to play, most likely. So you won't even need PlayStation Plus to play those games. But raising the price? Yeah, oh man, I mean, surely Sony isn't going to come out and say next that you need PlayStation Plus to play free-to-play games. No way. I don't think that will ever happen. But it does make me think that there is a decent chance that a handful of these multiplayer live service games from Sony will be paid premium experiences that do require PlayStation Plus. That's my guess. Could be wrong, of course, but yeah, like Helldivers 2, I mean, that's not a first-party title. The Helldivers IP is owned by Sony, but it's not a first-party studio making the game Helldivers 2, but that game will require PlayStation Plus because as far as we know, it's not going to be free to play. It seems very much like it's being positioned as a premium title. I don't know if it'll be $70. I think some people might question if that game will be worth $70. I'll buy it for $70 because I think it looks really, really good. But maybe $50, maybe. Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder about big games like The Last of Us multiplayer, right? Is that going to be $70? It might be. Yeah, it might be. I'll tell you what right now. If The Last of Us multiplayer features an actual story that you can play solo or co-op, but you can experience it solo, I think it'll be $70. I think Sony is aware that people would pay for that. Whether or not it would be worth 70, well, we'd have to see. Kevin G, you're saying, or sorry, I read that one. We have Rain718 saying, if Microsoft did this to me, I would simply unsubscribe. Well, there you go. I mean, that's the thing. People absolutely have that option. And if you look at my poll, again, I don't know if I believe it entirely that 61% of the votes, maybe they are true, but it's clear that at least some people, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to unsubscribe. It's a totally viable option, totally valid option. And it is truly the best way to send the message to Sony that I'm good. I was okay with it, but now too much, I'm good. And other people are going to do the opposite. Again, when we go over some of these takes I see on Twitter, you might be surprised that there are more people than I was expecting. They're like, dude, I'm fine with this. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to argue with you. Like, I'm sure Sony, that's what they were hoping for, to a degree. From some people, anyway. So thank you for the super chat, man. Omen86 again. Thank you, man, for the super chats. You're saying this super chat is just to support Jim Ryan. It's like politics. Sometimes someone just needs to make unpopular decisions, which are for the best in the long term. Those who don't usually fuck things up. That's funny, dude. I mean, yeah, with how intense the debates get and the slander and the arguments, you would think we were talking about politics with this stuff. Obviously, it's not politics, but I don't know, man. It seems like it almost feels like everything. I don't want to say everything has become political, but it's more along the lines of like the types of conversations and even arguments and engagements that you would normally reserve for something that is we're discussing politics. It seems like people are taking that same energy and applying it to everything. And that's the thing is like that's why I didn't want to do this stream where I'm yelling and we're ranting and we're raving. Like, look, man, I know that there are some PlayStation fans who either tuned in during the stream, maybe they tuned out, maybe they're still here, or maybe they'll watch it later and they're gonna be like, dude, MBG, you're crying, you're whining, you're bitching, you're moaning, and it's like, listen. I feel pretty confident in saying that I've been pretty chill this entire stream. I don't think there's any moment in time during the stream where I've gotten worked up or emotional. Like, I've just been talking to you guys, And I'm not trying to come off as defensive, but it's just this is what I mean, where people just it always has to be extreme. It's either you have to be overreacting and yelling and being belligerent. My voice has to go up like 3 octaves. It's either that or you just ignore it and just downplay and just, it's just a complete nothing burger. And it's like this is the perfect in-between where this is not good. It is relevant news. It's absolutely relevant to my channel and my content and my audience, but it's not something that I think warrants any type of intense reaction. But I think it does warrant a pretty significant discussion, an in-depth conversation. And that's what I'm trying to provide with this stream in particular, because as I said, I don't normally stream on Wednesdays, and I will still stream tomorrow. But I just thought, this is something that I think people would be interested in hearing about, at the very least, just to get the news, right? So, but yeah, Omen86, I hear you, man. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, Omen. That's the thing. Everybody's got to do what's best for them. And I'm not here to tell you or anybody what's best for you. Nope. That's not my place. Unintended Studios, longtime member for 21 months. You're saying got about 80 hours into Firewall now. I have so many issues with it, but the fun outweighs the bad. Once the bugs are fixed, it'll be a top 5 for sure. That's really that's really interesting to me and fascinating. 80 hours in Firewall. That's a You've racked up the hours, man. This game has been out for what? Not even a week yet? That's wild. I mean, you've been really living in this world, in this game. Yeah, I've been hearing it has some issues. I've also been noticing on on their official X profile that the studio First Contact Entertainment is posting out like updates and maintenance and stuff they're doing to improve the game. So I hope they do get it fixed sooner rather than later, man. But yeah, 80 hours, that's crazy, dude. You're saying I beg you stop calling it X. I'm just torn, man. I'm torn. I want to call it what it's actually called. But yeah, instinctively I want to just keep saying Twitter. Unintended Studios, you're saying you took today to catch up on sleep. Yeah, good call, man. I was gonna say with 80 hours, you might need to take a little break, dude. That's very very intense. Planet Schlorpian, thank you for the $5 super chat again, man. You're saying the Atreus expansion seems likely to me, to be honest. The ending, on top of being a tearjerker, set up something to where you can put two and two together. I agree. The ending of God of War Ragnarok was awesome. It was everything I had hoped it would be. I know that maybe for some people it was a little underwhelming, but to me, the emotional aspect and just the delivery of the performances, the writing, and just the weight behind the characters and everything that led up to that moment. Speaking about the very end, I thought it was done very, very well. It was incredibly satisfying, and at the same time, though, you're right. It did open certain doors, right? That they can go in a few different directions. One direction in particular, I do think, is quite obvious, which is with Atreus, without being spoilery or anything. So I agree, Planet Schlorpian, and I think that might be exactly where they go if they do a DLC. Rashdam V2, you're saying Microsoft reversed its policy, reversed it with public outcry. Maybe PlayStation will too. I doubt it, man. When Microsoft made that decision, for those who don't know what Rashdam's referring to, I think it was either last year or the year before. I think it was last year. But out of nowhere, Microsoft announced that they were literally doubling the price of Xbox Live from $60 a year to $120. And that, I mean, you're talking that's a $60 increase. And people were just like, no. Just straight, like everybody, like every single person on the internet just like came together and was like, no. And that's the thing here is Sony, at least for their base subscription, did not double the price. They increased it I think it is a substantial increase. $20 is $20. I mean, of course, if you spread that $20 over the course of a year, it's probably nothing, right? But it's still a $20 increase. And I think, if you compare increasing something by $20 versus increasing something by 60, you're going to get much more blowback on the $60 increase. And many people are going to be okay and more accepting of the $20 increase. Saying $1.60 more a month. It's so funny, isn't it? That when you break it down that way, it seems so insignificant. And I guess in a way it is, if you think about it. But you're saying monthly payments are the way to go. I don't know about that. Now I'm sure they're going to increase the monthly payments now too. Usually that's not the way to go. Usually the way to go is to get a year because you get a slight discount. Monthly. I don't know. Yeah, you might want to look into that, man. Usually it's more expensive to do monthly. Although if they kept it $10 a month, that would be the way to go, but they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. It would make no sense for them to do that. Vino, thank you for the $5 super chat. You're saying cost of living is already tough. Jobs not paying enough for Sony to expect casuals to spend $70 on an exclusive and now more for access to online. Yeah, that's the thing that kind of surprises me a little bit, man. Is it is absolutely true that the cost of living is like higher than it's ever been, and inflation is high, and there's just a lot of economic problems, like you're saying. Many jobs are not paying enough, and it's very unfortunate that it has to be this way, of course. But what's weird is that it's been this way for a little while now, and Sony's still doing fine. And so you say Sony to expect casuals to spend 70 on their exclusives and now for access to online. Is this the tipping point? Is this the straw that breaks the camel's back? I think Sony is internally, they're like, no, it's not. And I think we're going to see that reflected. That it's. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. If Sony sees, if they feel the financial impact of this move, like if this is like a cataclysmic decision they've made, I don't think it is. Like, it's still bad from a consumer level, but in terms of like how is this going to impact their bottom line? If this is like a cataclysmic decision they've made and they just didn't realize it, they will within 3 months they will reverse it. They will very quickly reverse it. Um, but that's the thing, man. Is I don't mean to keep, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but the reason why Sony expects this is because their numbers and the people, like, they're not seeing decreases, they're seeing increases. People are coming to this platform and coming to this console, and they are spending not just a little money but good chunks of money. And it's like when the customer is doing that, when the consumer is doing that, it's only to be expected that the company's probably like, well, maybe we can start asking for more, or we can put out more, we could do something. And this is just the worst way to do it, in my opinion. But yeah, Sony knows that their brand is considered like a more premium brand, and because of that, people are more inclined to spend money on it. So, saying B Flesher says, MBG, I don't think this is the tipping point, but things like this keep inching them closer. Yeah, I mean, you do have to wonder. You know what I think the tipping point will be? Truthfully, it won't be this. It's not going to be Sony increasing the price of the console like they did. It's not going to be um it's not going to be like games being $70. I mean, obviously these things weren't the tipping point. I think the tipping point, if it's going to ever happen, is going to be with Sony releasing a broken live service game that's, I mean, actually broken, like it's a disastrous launch, but has one of the worst monetization, like one of the most greedy monetization systems we've ever seen in a game. If something like that happens, and they could, who knows, maybe they could even do it in a premium priced game. If something like that ever happens, that will be the tipping point for the PlayStation fan base. I at least I'm very confident in saying that, because the PlayStation fan base right now is already very antsy and anxiety and frustrated with Sony's decision and desire to go all in with live service. But I think many people are like, if you do it right, Sony, maybe it won't be so bad. But if they do it wrong, it could be very bad. Yeah, or maybe that could be the tipping point. A live service game with NFTs all over the place. Oh man, that sounds like a nightmare scenario for Sony, at least for the PlayStation fan base. That would be the worst. Next up, we have VJ saying, keeping the fan base in the dark sucks. Price hike, shaking my head. I know, man. I really wish Sony would be more communicative with the fan base outside of blog posts. They're very, very weak in this area, and they seemingly show no desire to want to improve or change it. And that is the most frustrating thing. It really is. Like, I won't lie to you. This is one of the reasons why I don't want to see Jim Ryan in charge. Because I do often think to myself, like, what if somebody replaced Jim Ryan tomorrow, what would the next year look like in terms of communication with the fan base, with whoever took over? You know what I mean? I really wonder how much different and how much potentially better it would be in that sense. I'm not saying communication would make everything fine. I mean, if you get somebody at the top running PlayStation that doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't understand Sony's or PlayStation's business model, and doesn't understand these single player AAA games, and they ruin it, but they're communicating constantly, I mean, that could be even worse. That would be even worse. So, yeah, it's true. It doesn't exactly mean it will be better, but it just makes me wonder. Like, I just feel like Jim Ryan leading PlayStation, if he made the decision that we're going to be more, in touch with the fan base and we're going to do more stuff like we did during the PS3 and PS4 era, you don't have to go all in with that, but just a little bit more. I think it would be hugely beneficial for them. I do. That's why I don't understand why they don't do it. Chris Dennis, you're saying this is just the beginning, $100 essential at the end of the generation. Yikes. Yeah, that would be crazy, dude. I hope not. That would be too much, man. But it is possible. It is. I am not sitting here saying that would not happen or that's impossible. No, that could happen. I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. But we'll find out. And to Omen86 again, he says if Sony would announce a new limited edition Venom themed console plate for $70, there would be lines at the store. Suddenly, $20 became irrelevant. Sony's on top, and they'll stay there. I think you're right. I do. I mean, I think some people would say that that's like these are like fanboyish takes, and I don't view what you're saying that way because it is just the truth, right? In the sense that people can be as upset as they want, me included. It's not going to stop millions of other people from being like, yeah, well, you're saying this is coming from a guy who was talking about putting up a framed pic of Jim Ryan yesterday. Yeah, I don't know, Omen86. We might have to question you a little bit. I mean, I think you are a devout, member of the House of Ryanthology. And we all know rule number one, the House of Ryanthology is never question Jim Ryan's authority. No, but in all seriousness, man, you are just communicating that PlayStation still very much has the brand power to do what they want, knowing that, yeah, there will be lines. I'm telling you right now. Remember, I'm saying this. Could be 1 week from now. Could be 2 weeks from now. But I am very confident that Sony is going to do something in September. And when they do, no one, including me, no one will be talking about this. This will be water under the bridge. And the conversation around PlayStation could potentially be the polar opposite of what we are experiencing right now. People excited, people happy, right? Saying so we're all saps. I don't know if that I would say that. I just think that we're all, unfortunately, we all lack control. And I don't mean self-control, I mean actual control. Like, we don't control this stuff. We don't. You're saying you're not saps, you're just overreacting. Well, make no mistake, this stream will also be completely irrelevant a week from now. I know that. William says MBG is something that people aren't considering, which is that PlayStation announced they will be building an entirely new data centers just for their new super ultra fast streaming service in 4K low latency. That is true. And that will be interesting to see how that works, because that is one area where, yeah, it's true, we did forget to mention that. Again, I don't know that that alone, in the eyes of most people, justifies such a substantial price hike, but that could help. I did say that we need to see some type of benefit. We need to see some type of improvement. That could be one area where we see it. For sure. Yeah. Space Gambler Jr. says, MBG, you should do a short video so people don't forget. Yeah, that's the trouble, man. I mean, I try not to forget these things. Like, if I've mentioned in this video the PS5 price hike, the console, or not the console, the $10 upgrade fee. I mean, I still remember the Horizon Forbidden West upgrade fee fiasco, the $70 price increase. I remember this stuff, and I think this will be something. Of course, I'm gonna remember this because I'm gonna have to pay for it. You know what I mean? But I guess what I'm just saying is, like, people are gonna forgive Sony. I think people forget that this is just how these cycles work, right? Look at where Xbox was in 2013 and look at how bad their generation was, where people absolutely despised Xbox and the Xbox One. And they were the laughing stock of the industry. Look at where they are now. You would never know. You would never know. And that is the way these things work. Right now, there are people all over the internet, YouTubers included, that are convinced themselves and also convincing others that Sony is downhill from here. It's over, right? Or if it's not over yet, it's going to be. And I just think it's so funny that it's like, you clearly don't know how these cycles work, if that's really what you think. Because if you think Microsoft isn't going to fuck up again, you got another thing coming. If you think Sony isn't going to do something incredible again, you got another thing coming. If you think Microsoft isn't going to, after they fuck up, do something incredible again, you got another thing coming. If you think Sony isn't going to fuck up again, you got another thing coming. And that's the way these things work. It's just like I said earlier. You take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. Right now, there's no denying it. PlayStation needs some good. They do. It's been too long. August was a drag. Some people are sold on the PlayStation Portal, some are not. But it once again created some discourse. Starfield's coming out. Xbox players are good. We know Spider-Man's coming, so it's just a matter of, okay, Sony, you want to announce this price hike now? This is some bad. Where's the good? We want the good, Sony. We know you got it. And it'll help. It will. Won't make things perfect, but it'll help. For example, you know what I know? I know that Ghost of Tsushima 2 is in development. You know what else I know? I know that there will also be some type of robust multiplayer experience for Ghost of Tsushima. It could be a paid experience. What I also know is that if Sony says, yeah, you're going to have to pay $80 to be subscribed to PlayStation Plus to access this multiplayer component of Ghost of Tsushima, I know I will say, okay. Because I'm not going to let that stop me from playing this. But I also know that I would really prefer not to have to. You know? You know that I know. Boss Man Davey 1980, thank you for the super chat, man. You're saying they'll put an end to game sharing if subs drop. I do think that could happen, yes, for both Sony and Microsoft. I'm actually very surprised that both of these companies, and I think the reason why they do it is because, maybe I'm wrong about this, but if you game share with a friend or a family member, or even with PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live or whatever it is, Microsoft and Sony can count that as 2 users. We have 2 users subscribed to, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that's why they let it go, because it helps inflate their numbers and they can report those numbers to the shareholders, and it makes it's not, it's because it's technically not a lie, right? Like it's not. They're not lying to their shareholders, but it's just like we have two users that are using PlayStation Plus. That's my assumption with that. Because I've always wondered, like, how come they haven't gotten rid of that? You would think they definitely want to get rid of that, right? Sorry, guys, my throat's drying out a little bit. Saying it won't happen, it's a good family benefit. Yeah, I think so. What am I drinking? I'm just drinking some coffee. Just drinking some coffee. My third cup of the day. Although I feel tired, man. Why do I feel so tired? Maybe I'm just not getting enough sleep. Let me see here. We got Josh Z again. Thank you, man. He says, MBG, how often do you just flat out not want to play video games? I've not touched anything in weeks and I'm perfectly content about it. Great question, man. I don't think I've been asked that question. Truthfully, the longest I can recall going without playing video games in recent memory is like one day. Maybe that sounds really bad, but it's because it's such an ingrained part of my routine at this point. Like I sometimes I do think maybe I should take a break. Like it would be beneficial. It would help me disconnect a little bit. And when I come back, probably enjoy games a lot more. But it's so ingrained in my routine. And me and my wife play games together too. She has a PS5. I have a PS5. We've been enjoying, again, talking about multiplayer. We've been enjoying some Dead by Daylight. They just released the Alien DLC. We've been playing some rounds of that together. And that's kind of a routine we have where like every night we just sit down and we play a couple rounds together. So in order for me to like take a break, and I play many other games as well, but that's just I think like that is where there's just kind of this cadence, right? Where there's an expectation as you go throughout your day. Oh, okay. It's game time, let's get some gaming in, maybe a little bit in the morning. Something if I'm playing a single player game. Then at night, again, a couple multiplayer rounds. And anytime there's a day where I don't do that, it's usually because my routine is interrupted by something. Like I have to take care of something or I'm just out, whatever it might be, just a very busy day, hectic day. Saying one day, bro. Yeah, but at the same time, though, it should be said, it's not like there are times where I game for many hours throughout the day, but when I game, it's usually for maybe like 2 hours a day, roughly. Sometimes more, sometimes less. So that's why I'm saying when I don't game for a day, even if it's just a day, it's not, I don't know, like I don't really feel anything about it. Like I'll maybe just think, oh, I didn't play anything today. I don't feel bad, you know? Was the last time you took a big break? God, that's a tough one. It had to have been many years ago, man. I mean, I'm sure if I had to get, because it's tough to remember, but I know that there were times where I maybe went 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something along those lines. And these were at very different times in my life where I was just doing different things. Could have been school, could have been work, you know, certain living conditions and circumstances, whatever it may be. But what I do know is that I always missed games when I didn't play them. That I do remember. during those times. I do have the distinct memory of, man, I'm so used to playing games, I miss it. I want to go play games. But there, so I can't tell you the exact time, but I can say it's been many years. It's been many, many years. I am definitely a creature of habit, where once I establish like a routine and the way I do things daily, I try to it's not even that I try. I don't have to try. I naturally just like to stick to it. And I usually, for me, going out of my comfort zone means breaking up my routine. You're saying you're just in a funk right now? I think that's totally normal though, Josh. I do. I don't think it's bad. I think it's a totally natural, good, normal and even good thing because I'm sure that that's going to happen to me. I'm positive at some point. I mean, maybe the fact that I have this channel and I talk about games so much, maybe that's what keeps me so tethered to them. I mean, I sometimes do wonder if I didn't talk about video games, and I didn't have any presence on the internet involving video games, would I feel much more inclined to take a break? Would I just naturally take a long break? And I think the answer to that is probably of some kind. I don't know that it would be weeks at a time, but I'd probably just play less in general. Probably because I'd be doing something else. I don't know. I mean, it's very much I wouldn't know unless I was in that situation type of thing. But I wouldn't worry about it, man. I think it happens. I think these things kind of come in waves. I think it's very normal for people to just, not just with video games, but with anything. You do something for so long, and then one day you're just like, I just don't feel like it. Maybe a couple days goes by, a couple weeks goes by, and in some cases, for some people, a couple months go by, maybe even a couple years, right? And maybe some people are just totally content never returning to it. But I know plenty of people who, in fact, I have a friend who just told me they're getting a PS5. Actually, I think it's for Spider-Man 2. But yeah, it seems like to me he took a long break from games. He used to game every day, very much an enthusiast, and somewhere along the way, I guess he just kind of disconnected from it. And I think he could still be gaming a little bit here and there, but just not nearly as much. And the fact that he doesn't and didn't, well, he doesn't have a PS5 now, but he decided not to get a PS5 until now is interesting to me because he's always been like really into PlayStation. And that to me was like kind of a sign that I guess maybe he's just, gaming just isn't as important in his life right now. But now, that has changed. And I guess he's coming back to it. So, Josh, I guess to answer your question, man, not too often for me, but I think it's totally fine. And I wouldn't stress over it. Like you said, you're just in a funk, and I'll take it even a step further before I move on. I do want to say this. I think people I remember I came across a post where somebody said that this was a while ago, but they said the Resident Evil series is their favorite video game series ever. But I found out that they never played Resident Evil. Like they never physically played the game, any of the games, and they don't play games. And so I was like thinking to myself, like, wait, that doesn't make sense. How could this be your favorite series if you've never played it? And it was because the person watched playthroughs. And I know how this is. I know a lot of people instinctively are going to be like, well, you can't say that. How can you say that? You need to play the game. I disagree. Actually, I think that this is where you realize it's a personal thing for every person. Like I think if somebody said, I love the God of War games, and then I asked, oh well, did you play them? And they said, no. But I watched playthroughs of all of them and I loved them. I think you're missing something very crucial by not playing it. You really are. You're missing something truly crucial to the essence of what playing a video game is. But at the same time, I think that's valid. I do. I think that's valid to just say, like, this is how I interact with video games. Because who's to say, man? Like, who am I or who is anybody else to say, like, no, that's not, to me, that just seems like unnecessary gatekeeping where it's like, hey, it's fine, man. Like, plenty of people experience games that way. They experience them kind of vicariously, right? Like, I mean, this is why Let's Plays have been and still are so, you know, ubiquitous and everywhere. People love them. And I've never really felt that way. Like anytime I've seen a game, I've always felt like I would, like, if I'm enjoying watching it, I naturally feel like I would like to play it too. But I think it's totally fine, man. And so I guess I'm just saying that because I think about this myself. Like when I get really old hopefully I live long. And if I get really old one day, I mean, I'm talking like in my 60s, maybe even 70. I don't know. I'd be surprised if I lived to my 70s. But if I do, am I going to be playing video games? And I just kind of think to myself, like, well, maybe there could be a situation where it's like people change, man. I mean, anybody who's older, or well, at least I assume, based off of what I've experienced, people as you age, you get in these kind of like mindsets, this mentality where you think, I'm not going to change that much. 10 years goes by, you look back, oh man, totally different person. Sometimes not. Sometimes people do stay the same. But I think this happens multiple times throughout a person's life. And I just could imagine maybe one day when I'm like much, much older and I just see life so differently, maybe I won't have a desire to play games. Maybe like I played games my whole life. Now I just want to sit back and watch them. Watch other people enjoy them. Watch my kids enjoy them, right? Watch my grandkids, whatever it might be. Could be that. Or maybe I just want to talk about them. Maybe when I'm older, I'll get more enjoyment talking about games than actually playing them. And I think that's fine, man. I'm a psychopath. Apparently, Jay Shako is just totally shook by this conversation right now. But yeah, it's interesting, man. It's interesting stuff to think about. Meanwhile, right now, I'm doing quite the opposite, though. I purchased PlayStation VR 2, and I'm doing the opposite of playing less video games. I'm trying to get more immersed into video games. So that's where I am now. You're saying you already seem like, for some reason, like more of a talker, LOL. Yeah, oh, trust me. I could easily talk more about video games than play them. Like, no doubt. Yeah, I could talk about games for days and days and days. To whereas I don't know, I could definitely play games for days and days and days, but I'd say there's probably a healthy balance between the two right now. Let me see. Pig Roach, thank you for the $5 super chat, man. You're saying, did you see, according to King Thrash, you can land on gas planets? Actually, yeah, I did see that tweet or that post, and wow. Yeah, it's unfortunate, dude. I mean, I don't really have much of a comment other than it's just an unfortunate post, and I was just quite shocked to see how many responses and quotes it ended up garnering, because I know it, like, I think there were two people that I saw quote tweet it, and this is how I even came across it. One was the Act Man, the other was I think Legacy Killer HD. And these are both very prominent YouTubers with very large followings. And I was like, damn, that is quite unfortunate. Timothy M. I would try to. Oh, you're saying he made it to an article? Wow, that's impressive. That's always impressive, you know? saying what is a gas planet. So I don't know. Maybe I guess some people maybe I don't. I'm not judgmental like that. For those who don't know what a gas planet is, there are planets that are. It's exactly what it sounds like. They're made out of gases. They're not solid. And I think in this case, where the confusion happened is the notion that you can explore a gas planet or even land on a gas planet. And it's like, but you can't. It's gas. You know, there's no solids. You would have nowhere to land. And you would even have to question what is there to even explore. You're just basically in a cloud of some kind, you know? So gas planets are all over. I think most people know that, but I love astronomy. I'm not like super into it, but I love it. I find space very, very intriguing. I find the universe very intriguing. Which is weird because you would think, well then, oh, wouldn't like a space exploration game be interesting to you? It's like, no. isn't that so weird? To me, that's weird. I feel like that's a weird aspect to me. Where it's like I think space is fascinating and intriguing, but I have no desire to really play a game. This is why I never picked up No Man's Sky to play a game where it's like go explore space. I'm more interested in like the actual universe. And I come across these videos on YouTube and stuff, and just some of the mind-blowing things that exist out there that, I mean, it's truly like, wow. What are we? What is any of this? I love that stuff, man. I love how mind-blowing the universe and space is and can be. I also love the mystery, but I'm just like waiting for us to get more answers. And I don't know if we will in my lifetime. But I don't know. Apparently, aliens might be a thing. So there's that. You're saying listen to Joe Rogan's interview with Brian Cox. I'd actually listen to some segments of it. Yeah. Oh, man. You know what? Let me tell you something before I continue here. There was this video. I don't know the title of the video. I don't even know who made it. But I think it was like a professionally done video. It was like 20 or 30 minutes long. And this video made me have like an existential crisis because it was a time lapse of the universe. Yes, that's right. From beginning to end. And it was actually narrated by Brian Cox. And Brian Cox is a very famous scientist. I think he's an astrophysicist. Maybe I don't know exactly what his title is, but he's a very smart individual. He's a genius. And he actually narrated this entire video. And it was so unbelievably fascinating and disturbing simultaneously. And by the end of it, like by the end of this video, you just hear Brian Cox's voice and he's just calmly explaining to you that a literal unfathomable amount of time has passed. In fact, time isn't anything because you cannot fathom what this is. And black holes are dissolving and disappearing. And by the end of it, it was just like, and all that's left is nothing. And I was like, I wasn't ready for that. I gotta admit, like I really wasn't ready for that. Yeah, he does remind me of Mark Cerny a little bit. It was like too heavy. It was too, and I'm like, well, like honestly, by the end of it, I was like, well, you don't know that for sure. You know, by the end of it, I was like, you don't know that this is exactly the timeline of the universe. Okay. We are only human beings on this little speck called Earth. There's no way we could predict exactly the timeline of the universe. And I guess I didn't want to believe that this is actually how it would go because, man, that is unsettling. Yeah, go check that video out. I can't give you the name of it, but I'm sure if you look up like universe, the death of the universe or something like that, saying it really makes you think, doesn't it? It absolutely does. Makes you think too much. Like I said, existential crisis mode. Activate. Oh, and one last thing. Did you guys see that? I think it was from the James Webb Telescope. There was a really, really, really distant image that was taken, and they found a universe, or I don't know if not a universe, sorry, a galaxy that's shaped like a question mark. And of course, because we're human beings, like we now think like, is it a sign? What does it mean? Pretty crazy, man. Anyway, let me make sure I get all these super chats. I appreciate you guys being patient. I have a super chat from Omen86 once again, and he says, make fun of Jim. Fastest selling console ever. Only console with VR support. Premium headphones, premium controllers, remote play support, the best games and studios, the most monthly subs, etc. I mean, again, Omen86, that's the thing, man, is just keep in mind that if there are criticisms put Sony's way, like I don't blame you for saying these things, right? For bringing these things up, because people are very, very harsh on Sony right now, and especially the PlayStation fan base. People are too harsh. And the reason why I don't like that is because it doesn't allow for actual good conversation or any type of productive conversation. Instead, it just becomes, again, like kind of a tribalistic thing. And I get that. But in this case, it's like, it's okay to criticize Sony. It's okay to say this sucks. And this is not ideal. It's okay to say that. But I think it's also okay to also talk about the things that Sony does do that people like. Because that's the thing, man, is as much as there are people out there that absolutely despise the PlayStation brand in 2023 and despise the fan base and despise decisions that are made, they're doing something right. They're doing more than one thing right. Because if they weren't, people wouldn't be supporting it. People wouldn't be buying these products. They wouldn't be buying PlayStations. Again, that doesn't make everything okay. That doesn't mean it's perfect. I'm not here to say PlayStation's perfect. I'm actually here to say the opposite. PlayStation is far from perfect. I'm here to say that there are decisions that PlayStation makes that I don't like or that leave me feeling concerned. But I'm also here to say that there are things that PlayStation does and decisions they make that I do like that very much keep me here and I'm happy about. And that's all. That, like, Omen86, that's how I interpret your super chat, because for a lot of people, it just has to be, again, extreme one or the other. And the only thing I'm trying to encourage for people here is just be reasonable. That's all. Just be reasonable. Assess something in a fair way. Something can suck and be just totally what you would consider bullshit. Like I kind of think this is. It doesn't mean you have to forsake the video game platform that you enjoy playing on. It's not that dramatic, you know? They're doing what? I would answer that, but I don't know if you mean like in a good sense, like what are the good things that they're doing? I would list that, but I have to get a move on with these super chats. By the way, guys, if you could do me a favor, hit that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it. It helps the streams out. Figuratively literal. He says, Assad Kizilbash will save us. That's kind of funny. For those who don't know, Assad Kizilbash is the head of PlayStation Productions. So if you're saying PlayStation Productions will save us, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Top Shotta, thank you for the $20 super chat. That's very generous of you, man. You're saying, no, MBG, there is no justifiable reason for a 33% price increase. This is implication for the rest of the industry. If they get away with such an increase, the Nintendo and Microsoft will be happy to match those prices. I am in agreement with you, Top Shotta. Make no mistake, I am in agreement with you. A 33% price increase seems totally unnecessary. I mean, I'm at a point where it would maybe help a little bit if Sony could explain why they felt the need to increase it by 33%. But the implication that you mentioned here is the great concern, I think. Because if it was the other way around, if Microsoft did this, or even if Nintendo did this, I would be 100% ready. Like, oh, well, Sony's going to do it now too. You know what I mean? Sony's going to follow suit. Why wouldn't they? The question is when. You're saying going from 60 to 80 is 25%. I think I could be wrong. I think he's referring to either PlayStation Plus Extra or Premium. The premium price increase, I do not understand. More than anything here. Not to keep harping on, but it's relevant to the super chat. You're saying maybe you're wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible with math, so I would have to. But what I do know is that PlayStation Plus Premium is increasing by $40. And I don't know, man. I just would have thought that if Sony was going to increase the price of premium that much, that at the same time they would have announced like, and here new thing, like we're bringing more games each month to premium now. Here's the, cloud 4K streaming for PS5 games, but they didn't do that. And that's what's strange to me, because that is like the most intense increase there by $40. I just think it would have really helped at least a little bit, just a fraction, if Sony could have explained like what's going to happen now with premium. Because right now the only thing they've communicated to us is nothing's going to happen. You want it to stay this way, right? Well, we're going to need $40 more. It's like, what? $40? That's a good chunk of change, dude. That's a good chunk of change. So it's unfortunate, man. And it will be very interesting to see, Top Shotta, because I don't think Sony's going to reverse this as much as I would like them to. I don't think they're going to. It will be interesting to see if Microsoft and Nintendo follow this. We'll have to wait and see. But Top Shot, again, thank you so much for the $20 super chat, man. I have Kyle. Kyle says, I just got my PlayStation Plus subscription during the holiday special period, so I just always get it cheaper. Playing Walking Dead Chapter 1 on VR at this moment. Well, that's cool, man. Yeah, I've heard really good things about the Walking Dead games in VR. I looked up a little bit of gameplay of it. It does look pretty good. I have other VR games that I have to scratch off my list first. Maybe one day I'll give Walking Dead a shot. But yeah, I did see people mentioning that as well. I've seen people mentioning that, like, hey, there are many times throughout the year where these PlayStation Plus subscriptions go on sale. And that's true. So maybe now more than ever, if you're somebody who didn't usually partake in these sales, you might want to now. I'm thinking about it. So you're saying competition is supposed to bring costs down, not up. Yeah, that's why I said earlier, dude, like this isn't competition. I don't know what this is exactly because it's still changing. There's still moving parts, but no, yeah, that is definitely not competition. The Rock. Thank you for the $5 super chat, man. You're saying, just saying what's up. Find myself missing games as well. I stopped to spend time with family, but always miss the game. Well, I appreciate the super chat, man. And yeah, I think we've all been there. I always try to make sure I set time aside to do other things. I need to get better with it. Truthfully, I do. I spend a lot of time on YouTube. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I spend a lot of time gaming. I could certainly afford to maybe set aside more time to do other things with the family, go outside more, touch grass, certainly. To be fair, though, I do enjoy going outside. I don't know, man. We're still in summer, and I just don't really enjoy going outside on days where it's like 93 degrees out. It's like, I'm good. I'm good. Like, unless I have to, I'm good. But I hear you, man. Omen86, again, thank you, dude, for the super chats. You're saying, not so long ago, my girl was overdue, and I was just thinking with all these great games coming up, that's going to hurt my budget. Turned out to be a false alarm. Now I'm just spending it on MBG streams. Damn. Omen. Well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the support, Omen. I don't know how many super chats that is today, but quite a few. And you were here yesterday, man. You did some certainly some member gifting. You did a lot of member gifting. So I appreciate the support, man. It means a lot. False alarm. Guess I should be thankful for that, right? Black Tux, thank you for the $10 super chat. You're saying, have you seen the new Warhammer Space Marine 2 gameplay? It looks incredible. Where's the hype? The scale of the combat is unreal. Also, legit might be the best looking game I've ever seen. Also, said also twice there, but it's cool. It's cool. So I did see this, and I'm excited for it. Yeah, I saw this gameplay of, and I'm not like familiar with the Warhammer games or this universe, but I did see this gameplay kind of going around, and it does look really, really, really good. I was kind of shocked myself. I'm like, dude, this game is looking phenomenal. I think I'm going to have to pick this one up. I don't know what the release date is, though. So I'll have to keep an eye on that. With my luck, it'll be coming out in October, because why wouldn't it? Because every game has to release in October. But yes, guys, I'm not going to bring it up right now, but I would suggest going to check this game out. Warhammer Space Marine 2. The gameplay looks very good. It looks brutal. Looks intense. I liked it. So I'm hyped for it. Let me see here. We got 2 super chats from Josh. Back to back. Appreciate that, bud. You're saying, once your tolerance is up, I think you should jump into Firewall again, MBG. It is that SOCOM experience. They got a hefty patch out. I think you'll like it. Don't appreciate its launch state and feeling like a beta tester. And they still need to patch the matchmaking, but I'm telling you, there's fun to be had. Yeah, I'll have to think about it, Josh. I can't make any promises, because I won't lie, it was definitely not a good experience. It was just straight up a bad experience for me. But it is true that I did spend the money on the game, and it's there. And it's not going anywhere, and it's only going to improve. So I think for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on Horizon Call of the Mountain. And then after that, I want to play the Moss games, because you guys have told me like the Moss games are must plays. Then maybe after that, I'm assuming if I put that much game time in VR, I'll feel much more, much more confident in spending longer periods of time with more intense games. Maybe I'll try it then. But yeah, man, I really wonder why their launch was so rough, because it seems like there was no rush for this game. So I'm not entirely sure, but they did put out a patch, and I'll try to keep my finger on the pulse with this game, at least a little bit. Again, I can't make any promises, and honestly, as we go into September and October, seems like things are going to get kind of crazy with game releases. Saying play drums, Rock, since you like drumming. I saw that, but the only thing that made me extremely hesitant is their track listing. Do they have a good track listing in that game? Because it looks like a smaller indie game, and I imagine they probably would have a tough time securing a lot of music tracks. Figuratively literal. You're saying Carl Sagan will always be the best, in my opinion. Yeah, Carl Sagan, he's a legend, man. Absolutely. Omen86 again, dude. Thank you for all the support today. You're saying shout out to YouTube channel Brita Food for Dogs. That old lady is a blessing for the gaming community. If anybody deserves the YouTube subs, it's her. I'm not sure who this is. Brita Food for Dogs. Well, I'll take your word for it, Omen. I hope I don't regret this. But there you go. Omen86 giving Brita Food for Dogs, giving her YouTube channel a shout out. So maybe I'll have to look into that. So here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to head over to Twitter and I'm going to go to my post. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so I'm going to read some of the replies that I've gotten on this post because so I posted this 4 hours ago. I said Sony just announced PlayStation Plus is going up $20. PlayStation Plus Extra is going up $35. PlayStation Plus Premium is going up $40 with no improvements of any kind. Jim Ryan is completely out of touch. This is a joke. This, within 4 hours, has garnered 123,000 views, which is much more than I was expecting. But with that, it's also garnered a ton of replies. So let's go see what some of the more upvoted replies are. Let's see what people are saying on X, formerly known as Twitter. So I have an individual here who says, "Oh dear, it seems like Sony is playing their own game of raising prices without delivering any upgrades. Jim Ryan, you might need to hit the respawn button on that decision." Okay. Another individual says, "I don't think he's making this move by himself. As far as I remember, Sony has an amazing analytics department. They're just shifting their focus to players who are richer now." Yeah, that's not, I think that's probably true. You know, like I don't think Jim Ryan is allowed to just make these decisions on his own. There's a lot of people that work at Sony, so yeah. This person said, "My guess, they foresee needing to put more games day one on their service to compete with Game Pass." Somebody replies to that and gets a bunch of upvotes saying they should have done that first or the same time they announced this. Yeah, to me, that's the thing. A lot of people are saying that maybe Sony did this so they can get more day one titles. But what doesn't make any sense to me is if that was true, why Sony wouldn't say that. That would help. That would turn this into maybe even good news for some people, right? Where it's like, oh, I want more day one games. I have to pay a little bit more for it, but that's good, right? But they didn't announce that, so. Somebody else says Jim Ryan isn't the only problem. It's the fan base. They're raising the prices without adding value because up to now, they've gotten away with it. And PlayStation loyalists keep paying. You're one of the few who is willing to call them out. Oh, well, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I get where this guy's coming from. It's just that it's not that simple. I wish it was, man. I do. Like, I know that it's easy to try to simplify it where it's like, well, if people just stop paying for it, problem solved. The truth is more nuanced and complex than that, where the fan base itself, like, this is just the way it works with all things. The fan base, when it grows, there is what would be considered like the hardcore people who've been there for a long time, been there from the beginning, veterans. But as it grows, there are not only new people that come on, but a lot more casual people. You see this with everything. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not just exclusive to PlayStation. PlayStation has exclusives. This is not one of them, right? Like, look at Marvel, man. Look at comics. Look at superhero movie genre, right? Like, I mean, why do you think, why do you, like, it became so appealing to the masses that everybody and their mother at some point in time, like everybody and their mother and their aunt and their uncle and their grandkids and their grandmother went to go see Endgame, because it just got that big. And so what happens is after so many people get on board, well, now Marvel has to consider that. They have to consider that we're not just catering to like a core group of people here. Like now we're catering to everybody. So what do we do? And it has led to problems. Granted, maybe this analogy isn't the strongest because it's like, well, we're talking about movies and whatnot. But I mean, you could take a look at Apple as an example, right? Like Apple is everywhere. I mean, everyone has an Apple product, right? Everyone. So when you consider that they've gotten so big, like they can do literally whatever they want. And they do. And it works just fine. So it's like, well, we have to blame the Apple fan base then. It's like, well, at that point, you're blaming like everybody. You know what I mean? Like, not literally everybody, but you're blaming, like the blame can only be displaced so far until at some point. And here's another, it reminds me of Call of Duty as well, right? It's like, and I've complained about Call of Duty in the past, but it's just that why does everybody still buy Call of Duty and play it? Do we blame Activision? It's Activision's fault. They're greedy. They keep charging us $70 a year, $60 a year. Right? It's their fault. Well, is it their fault that the game's selling? Okay, well, then it's the fan base's fault. It's their fault. Okay. But if they're buying the game and they're happy to buy it, what's the problem? And that's where you realize that it turns out when things get big enough and the audience grows large enough, 9 times out of 10, people are going to band together and they're just going to be like, that 10% that doesn't like this, whatever, see ya. That's how it goes, man. That's how it goes. It's yeah, it is truly a catch-22. Like the question is this, because he's not wrong. Like the Jim Ryan isn't the only problem, it's the fan base. Okay, but what's the solution? And that's the thing, man. There is truly only one solution. Do you know the only way you would get Sony to reverse this policy? Not policy, but this price increase. There's only one way. You know what that way is. Millions upon millions of people, I mean millions of people, would have to unsubscribe or even go a step further and stop playing on PlayStation. Is that going to happen? No, it's not. Not even close. Sony knows this. The fan base knows this. And when I say the fan base, I'm talking about the millions of people that don't watch YouTube videos, watch content creators like me and others, follow people on Twitter, no, or go on Reddit. I'm talking just the millions of people that just buy PlayStation, subscribe to PlayStation Plus, and they just live their lives. This doesn't matter to them. And I know that there have been people throughout this stream that have tuned in basically saying that, like, this is not a big deal. People are overreacting. To an extent, you are correct in that there are people who don't care at all. And the chances of that being millions upon millions upon millions of people, the overwhelming majority of people, very high. Sony knows this. um, and so I don't know what to say about that other than until the day comes where people stop giving uh the money over. And again, like, I even feel strange saying that because, like, I'll never be the person to tell people where they should or shouldn't put their money. It's your money. You do what you want with it. I will never tell somebody you shouldn't buy that. Don't buy that. Do what you want, man. The only thing I ever try to do is just make people aware of the message you may be sending, both positive and negative. Like, for example, I would love to buy Spider-Man 2 for $70 because I want to send the message to Sony. I like these types of games and I hope to get more of them. Right? But it works against me because it's like I'm going to pay $80 for PlayStation Plus Essential so I can continue to play multiplayer games on the PlayStation platform. But I really wish there was a way for me to not send that message to Sony, because the message that Sony receives, again, the language they speak is money, is, oh, well, he's okay with it and they're okay with it. Everyone's okay with it. Like, no, Sony, we're not okay with it. You just strong armed us with multiplayer. Um, I don't know, man. It is what it is. Like, we'll have to see what ends up happening, man. But this is not going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's just not. Miguel, you're saying MBG, when a product price goes up, so should the quality/quantity. I think we should speak with our wallets. Those of us who think it's too much. I might. Well, yeah, I completely agree. It's just I don't know what I would do at this point. Again, like, me and my wife, we have PS5s, we game together. I play multiplayer. It's like, what am I gonna just? Well, I'm done playing on PlayStation now. I'm just not gonna play these games anymore. You know what I mean? It's a tough situation where I have to be honest and real with myself. Where it's like, I'm not gonna do that, and I don't. This is why I don't want to tell people, like, you should be outraged. Like, it is what it is, man. It sucks. It does. But if I make a decision, like, I'm not paying $80 a month now. Like, once my PlayStation Plus subscription runs out, I'm done. I'm going to be the one that kind of suffers there the most, because it's like, but I want to play games on my PlayStation 5. Like, I want to play Dead by Daylight. I want to, play Helldivers 2 when it comes out. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just where I'm annoyed. Like, I don't, like, what's the, like, what's the solution here? Saying time to go to PC. Well, I mean, I guess it's true that, yeah, I don't know, man. It's funny to me that Sony, they continue to make a great case for PC, because I think Helldivers 2 is going to be on PC, and so is, well, Dead by Daylight is on PC. But saying another day, another MBG rant against Sony. I swear he bashes Sony more than Xbots. Well, I highly recommend, I don't know if you watched the whole stream or not. I highly recommend coming back and watching the entirety of the stream, because I think you'll realize that there's been no, as far as I'm aware, no Sony bashing. Like, you saying bashing, that implies that you're giving unfair criticism, undeserved criticism to Sony or to the PlayStation platform. I think that everything I said today has been totally valid and warranted. Maybe some people disagree. Like, I'm not saying that everybody should say, yeah, you're totally right, MBG. I don't necessarily think it's that, but it's just, I think most people would agree that I'm being fair about it. I'm being reasonable. That's the goal. At least I hope I am. You're saying I watch all of your streams and you always have negative things to say about Sony. Most of your audience is pro PlayStation. I mean, maybe it seems that way recently. I wasn't too happy with the Sony showcase. I'm not too happy with how quiet Sony's been since. I'm concerned about the live service, you know. But I do say a lot of positive things about Sony as well. And they're not forced either. You know, they're not forced. Anything positive I say about Sony is because I actually feel that way, you know? Like it's not like, oh, I gotta say something good, or like I could have not streamed today. You know what I mean? Like if I was worried about, oh man, I don't want my audience to think I'm being too negative to PlayStation. Like, no, what my audience deserves is honesty. Like that's what my audience deserves. They deserve a content creator that, you know, especially here on the channel, it's based on giving my takes, my opinions, my thoughts. You deserve more than anything honesty. And it's totally fine if people don't like what I have to say. You know, it's totally fine if you think I'm being way too harsh on Sony or I'm being overly negative, that's totally fine. There are plenty of people out there that think I'm being way too easy on them right now. But what I can tell you with certainty is what I am being is honest. And that to me matters more than anything. And another super chat from Omen86, dude. Thank you. You're saying, do we honestly believe Sony will just raise the price and not add value or come up with good news to offset this? Their studios are cooking. Have faith, boss. You are about to accidentally turn my PC off. I don't know how, but you are. He's like rubbing his face up against the power button on my PC. Probably like just seconds away from completely shutting it down. Yeah, that's the thing, man. I did say earlier, Omen, that the timing of this does indicate to me that Sony is getting ready to reveal some good news. The question here is this: if Sony does reveal some good news in the next week or two, is it going to have anything to do with PlayStation Plus? I think that's the question. Maybe it will. I mean, maybe Sony will have some surprises for us, man. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's just the one thing I will say about PlayStation at this point in time is I'm having more and more of a struggle giving them the benefit of the doubt in some ways. Because think about it, man. Like, if you would have told me, like, hey, MBG, you're going to wait over a year and a half for the next PlayStation showcase. And I would have said, and I did say over and over again, that it'll totally be worth the wait. And if you had told me, like, actually, it's not, there are going to be some things you like, but generally, you're going to feel pretty disappointed, and so is everybody else. I'd say no way. Say no way. That's not possible. And that's what happened. If you had told me at the beginning of this generation, do you know Sony's going to make 12 live service games? Many of which are going to come from their first party studios. I would have said, what? That doesn't sound like PlayStation. You see? If you told me, you know, that if you had told me at the beginning of this year that when we approach September, we're still not going to know pretty much anything about PlayStation's roadmap for 2024 or beyond. We're not going to know like anything. I would have said no way. I would have said no way. So it's not that I'm saying I assume bad things are going to happen for PlayStation or only bad things. It's not that, because again, there's still great things, man. Like it should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Like I still love playing on my PS5. I'm still very much excited for Helldivers 2 and Spider-Man 2, and that's just this year. I'm still very much looking forward to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Rise of the Ronin. And even though we haven't seen anything, I'm super excited for Wolverine. Like these things are not in question. But I cannot deny that it has been harder and harder for me to give Sony the benefit of the doubt when it comes to these things. For example, if Sony does do another showcase, which I'm not saying they will, but if they did, I would be, I'm going to temper my expectations. And I know some people might not like that. I'm not going to say it's going to be bad. I'm just saying I'm not overhyping this thing. No way. Not a chance. You know, my expectations are going to be minimal. Like I will have some expectations, but I saw the last showcase It could be that again. And I will be prepared for that this time, you know? And I just hate that that's where it is, where it's like, to me, that's not Sony. That's not the Sony that I know, right? Like, or I'm used to. And I still remain hopeful. Don't mistake expectation with being hopeful. I am still hopeful, that it'll, there will be those great moments. Like, it's not, there's just one bad showcase, it happens. But there is still that part of me that has to be aware that, like, well, it's not all perfect. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. And Omen86 again saying, if Xbox taught us anything, it's that sentiment can change fast. After Redfall, Xbox was done for. Look at things now. Sony has things up their sleeve. Yes, very well said, Omen. Very well said. And not even 100% true. That is 110% true. This is why I'm almost loosely taking this as like a slight confirmation that Sony's got something they're doing soon, because they did not want to announce this. Like, it's obvious they did not want to announce this. Why would they? But yeah, it's the nature of the beast, man. It's the pendulum, and it swings back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And sometimes that pendulum comes back around much quicker than you thought it would. So, I've said it twice now. I'll say it a third time. You got to take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. And I think that's what most of us are doing here. People have always asked me, and this is maybe an appropriate time to bring this up. People have always asked me, like, MBG, what would it take for you to, like, not support Sony anymore? To just basically be done with them and fed up with them the way that you were with Xbox? I think the answer to that is obvious, especially when you look at why I even got to that point with Xbox. But it's the same as it's always been and always will be. I look at these platform holders, like when I was playing on Xbox, when I like fully embraced the Xbox 360 generation and transitioned to the Xbox One, the thing that did it were the games. It was the games. It was everything else they were doing too, because let's face it, Microsoft was killing it at the beginning of the Xbox 360 generation. But that's mainly what it was. And even at the beginning of the Xbox One generation, Microsoft had some pretty good games, man. They weren't all bangers, but some of them were pretty damn good. And I enjoyed them. But then I noticed that things really started to go south quickly. And when it comes to PlayStation, it would take a lot for me. I'm very heavily invested in PlayStation. I've been playing on PlayStation since the PS1. I'm more invested in this platform than I've ever been. And it would really take a lot. But the thing that would do it the fastest is if Sony stopped making these great games that I, at this point, fully expect from them. And that is what was so shocking about that showcase. Not to keep bringing it up. I know people are tired of hearing about it, but that's why, people talk about, MBG's legendary meltdown with the PlayStation showcase. It was a bit over the top. But at the heart of why I was upset about it was because this isn't PlayStation. Spider-Man 2 is, but that's it. Everything else we saw from Sony, that's not PlayStation. That's Bungie. That's Firewalk, which is a brand new, unproven PlayStation studio making a multiplayer shooter. That's Haven, a brand new, basically Ubisoft-esque studio making a multiplayer game. Like, that's not Sony. That's not PlayStation. And so the question simply was, where's PlayStation? Like, really, like, where's the PlayStation we know and love? Because this showcase wasn't it, except for Spider-Man. And if it wasn't for Spider-Man, it would have been a million times worse. And so This is where you're saying the hype before the showcase was over the top. It was too much. I don't know. I'm half and half on it. Like, I do feel that maybe people like myself got a little too crazy, but at the same time, I think it was totally fair to have high expectation because we went a very long time. You know what I mean? But I just want to know simply. And I have a good, like, this is where I still feel confident and again, hopeful that PlayStation Studios, when I evaluate all of their studios, all of the games that, when I say we know are in development based off of job listings, some that are announced, it's true. They do have many things cooking. It is true. They got a lot going on in the kitchen. We just don't know. Like, we just haven't seen it, you know? But it would really require Sony to basically come out for like 2 years straight, probably, even if it was just a whole year. And it's just hard to imagine this ever happening, where they're like, either A, we don't have games, sorry, or B, these are our games and they're extremely underwhelming and extremely disappointing and just not at all the high quality type of game you expect. And if they do that, if they start to do that consistently, I would go. The only reason I wouldn't go is if nobody else was doing it any better. You know what I mean? And that like, I don't anticipate that that's PlayStation's future. I'm not sure why anybody would anticipate that's PlayStation's future. Because if that's PlayStation's future, then PlayStation is doomed. And I don't think PlayStation's doomed. I think PlayStation's going to continue to truck along, like I said. And when people say, like, what's wrong with this fan base? What's wrong with the PlayStation fan base? Why are they still here? Why are they still buying these products? It's because they're happy with the games. That's why. I think look, I'm not trying to flip this over on Microsoft. All right. And I know people don't, sometimes people get tired of the hypotheticals, but you want to be real, we want to acknowledge that Jim Ryan's a businessman and this is about the bottom line and Sony's a company and they just want to ring you for all you're worth. What do you think Microsoft is? You think Microsoft is your friend? You think that you think that they're spending the $68 billion because they like you and they're happy to have you? Well, yeah, sure, maybe now. They're whining and dining you. They have to. Just like Sony did with the PS3 and the PS4. Mainly the PS3. They got to wine and dine you, man. They got to be your friend. But once they have what they want, and make no mistake, Microsoft is about to get what they want. They got it with Starfield, and they're about to get it tenfold with Call of Duty and Activision Blizzard. And the mobile side of things. Once Microsoft realizes they are in a position of power, they're going to want more money from you too. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think people should embrace that is the name of the game. A multi-trillion-dollar company does not become a multi-trillion-dollar company by being your friend and giving you a great deal. They do it by, again, whining and dining you, gaining power, and then looking towards the road of profitability and growth. Sony did it. Microsoft's doing it. Nintendo did it. It's just the name of the game, man. And again, I'm not trying to flip this on Microsoft because it's not. I'm just saying that Microsoft being in their own area right now with a game like Starfield, this is the first major power play from Microsoft. Sony's had many power plays. This is where the power plays lead. At this point, for as much as I have complained about Sony, the stream, and as annoyed as I still kind of feel about this, my only request from Sony is simply what it always has been. Please continue to make great gaming experiences that I consider must have and are my favorite, pretty much. That's it. Like, just please continue to do that. And I'll be here, and I'll be there for those games. And Microsoft is now doing that for the first time. This is Microsoft's power play with Starfield. Starfield is truly Microsoft's first, absolute must play title on their platform in many, many years, I think. And there's a reason why there's a reason why Microsoft isn't putting early access into Starfield in Game Pass. And you have to pay full price for it. It's fine. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying that people need to get this notion out of their minds for their own sake, for the sake of clarity, that these corporations are only in it for your money. And even if you have a corporation that's willing to play the long game, just know that the end of that road is how much money can we get from you. That's for Sony and that's for Microsoft. The problem with Sony right now is they're not hiding it, not even a little bit. So the market will speak. That is the best note I could end this entire conversation on. I'm removing myself from the equation. I'm removing everybody from the equation in this chat right now. The best thing I could say when it comes to this price increase for PlayStation Plus, the market will do what it always does. It will speak and it will communicate a message, and we will see what that message is. Sony will see what that message is. And that's that. That's that. Let me see. I got Omen86 again. Omen going crazy with the super chats today, man. You're saying context for Showcase. Xbox was a joke at the time. We believed Sony would beat Xbox to the ground with a AAA showcase, kick them all down. That is true. You're right. That is true. Sony's Showcase came shortly after what happened with Redfall, and yeah, it was a perfect storm in a way. It really was like a perfect storm, and we felt that. The PlayStation community felt that storm. We weathered that storm. What am I, a pirate? I'm just gonna go over here one more time. See if there's anything I missed. I don't think so. I don't think I missed anything. I'm trying to find this one reply from this person that basically said they felt that it was totally fine. I can't find it. There's so many replies now. It's lost. I see somebody here. They say, see, these are the replies that fascinate me. I'm not paying $80 for a basic subscription to only play online and have backup saves. Ridiculous. 60 is already way too high for a sub. And they have a bunch of upvotes, but it's like, but the question we have to ask, like I admire the passion there. I do. I admire it. Like it was a passionate, you could tell that that person was very passionate when they were typing that. I admire it. But the real question is he really going to unsub? Better question, if he did choose to remain subscribed, who would know? Sony would know. We wouldn't. All the upvotes he had, all those people who took a second to just click the heart. Yeah. How many of those guys are going to unsubscribe? See what I mean? It's just vote with your wallet. But something tells me that the polls are already closed. You know? Something tells me that we already know. You're saying only his friends list would know. Yeah, I guess so. Well, we'll see, man. We will see. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this stream today, guys. This is more of an impromptu stream. I think if I'm saying that word correctly. I wasn't planning on streaming today, as you know, and I could have saved this topic for tomorrow, but the reason why I decided not to is because I believe tomorrow Starfield reviews come out, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that people are not going to want to talk about that. You know, I'll put on a stream and we will see, like, you know, how are the reviews for Starfield? I think everybody's very curious. I'm not interested in the game personally, but even I'm curious to know, like, where's it going to land? You know, what are the pros? What are the cons? What are people saying who are playing this game? So it will probably be a more Starfield themed show tomorrow, which, you know, it's really weird because, like, I got this comment yesterday on yesterday's stream, and, like, this person was like, MBG once again talking about a platform he doesn't play on and knows nothing about. And it's like, okay, look, I get the idea of, like, why are you talking about a platform you don't really play on? I get that. What I don't get is, like, you know nothing about. See, that's what I don't get, man. It's like, what do you mean? I know a lot about Microsoft. I know a lot about the Xbox platform. I probably know much more than the average person, even for somebody who doesn't actively play on it these days. I know quite a bit. But then, you know, when I told this person that, like, look, man, I'm being pretty fair here with what I'm talking about. In fact, and this is the thing I tried to say to this person. I was like, did you actually listen to the stream before you left this comment? Because your comment has upvotes. So there are people upvoting your comment being like, yeah, I agree with you. Did that person or those people upvoting those comments, did you listen to my stream? And the reason why I asked him is simple. It's because I said mostly good things about Xbox yesterday. I said very few critical things about Xbox. Most of it was praise. And those are the types of comments that people leave. It's like, so I can't even say good things about Xbox now? Hold on. So it's a problem when I say something bad, but it's also a problem if I say something good. People are like, oh, well, the solution, you shouldn't talk about it. It's like, well, that's a shame. Because I'm going to talk about it when I feel like talking about it. It's just funny to me, you know? It's funny to me. But yeah, we'll talk about Starfield tomorrow. Trying to think, is there anything else that's supposed to be happening tomorrow or September 1st? I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. All right. Well, I hope you guys did enjoy the stream at the very least. Again, not the type of exciting PlayStation announcement stream that many of us would like, including myself. Maxwell, you're saying, to put it bluntly, it's not Sony's fault you don't use all the value that their service offers. I wash my car, but don't vacuum. It's not the business's fault. Yeah, true. I have seen some people where they're like, they play all the, maybe not all, but a ton of the PlayStation Plus games, and to them it feels totally worth it. They feel like they're getting away with, you know, steal. I don't feel that way. That's yeah. I mean, it again, man. Sony, come on. I'll say it one last time. Please remove the multiplayer paywall. I know you won't, but we would really appreciate that. Everyone would like that. Everyone would like that. Let the people who want to play the PlayStation Plus games, let them play the PlayStation Plus games. All right. Vacuum is usually free. All right, guys. Yeah. In all seriousness, though, I'm tapped out here. So before I head out, I do just want to ask you guys, as you're leaving, please leave the stream a like. I'd really appreciate that. We're almost at 400 likes. It'd be great if we could get to that number before the stream ends. And I also just want to extend a thank you to everybody here. You know, even on a day like today, random stream, not the greatest of topics, not the most exciting, you guys still show immense support. So to everybody who donated a super chat, I do want to thank you. And we had a couple membership gifts as well. Shout out to you guys for continuing to gift memberships. And yeah, I trying to just make sure there's nothing I'm forgetting here. Oh, you know what? So actually, there is one thing that I am forgetting, and I'll mention this briefly. The only thing about this is it might shift. So I'm gonna change slightly. I was thinking about not talking about this, but I feel like it's important for me to mention it to my viewers, mainly those of you who support me here directly. I've been continually getting feedback that when I'm trying to talk about specific topics, and I actually tested it out today to see how it would work. When I'm talking about specific topics, a lot of times people feel that I get way too off track too easily. And one of the biggest reasons that happens is because maybe I get a super chat or some membership gifts. And you guys know I find it critically important to acknowledge every super chat and to acknowledge every membership gift. And so, what I'm thinking about doing is essentially organizing the stream much better than how I have been. So, what we can do is I will have different segments of the stream. We'll do the intro. During the intro of the stream, much more relaxed, much more tame. That'll be a great time for people to give super chats if they want in that moment, or do membership gifts, get the membership trains going. And then when we segue into the first topic, I think I'm going to put it up on screen where it'll be up there, maybe the top left corner or something, or top right. It'll say topic number 1. And this is going to signal to everybody that I absolutely still would love you to super chat and gift memberships during this time. But while I'm talking about the topic, I'm going to stay on that topic. I'm not going to read super chats until the topic is done. And if we get memberships, I will acknowledge those memberships when they are done. But here's the thing. Once I am finished discussing the topic uninterrupted, I'm going to take that, I'm going to hide topic number 1. You're not going to see it anymore. And instead, it's going to say super chats / memberships. So this is going to be a segment. So basically, I'm going to just have 2 parts. One's dedicated just for the topic, where I'm laser focused, and you're just going to hear me and my thoughts uninterrupted. And after that, there's going to be a second part where that conversation, that topic, will likely be extended as I read the super chats. And this is pretty much what happened today. But also during that time, this will be where anybody who wants to gift memberships and get those membership trains going and those shout outs going, that'll be like the perfect time to do it. Like, as I said, you can gift memberships whenever, you will still get your shout out. But if you gift memberships during a time when the topic is up, I'll test it out. I'm assuming this will be more beneficial for everybody. I think it'll be beneficial for me because it'll keep me on track and keep my thoughts more cohesive. I think it'll benefit you guys because you'll be able to get that side of me where it's uninterrupted, but we'll also have these sections where it's just purely interactive. It's purely on the super chats. It's purely on the, membership gifts and whatnot. And this is in an effort to essentially make it so that everybody can win, right? So that if you are somebody who supports me directly, you have your own dedicated time, and that's where it's going to be. And then if you're somebody who is like, maybe you can't catch the streams live, you got to watch it later. You'll have each topic where you'll be able to hear me and what it is I have to say about it. So, and the truth is though too, like it is for me as well, because there are so many moments where I get sidetracked and I forget to make a point, or I forget to say something that I definitely wanted to say. And I sometimes don't even remember it till later that night. I'm like, shit, I forgot to say this one thing, So I hope you guys are cool with that. Again, today was a bit of a test bed for that. Devil Shooter saying, MBG, you still want timestamps? Yeah, definitely still want timestamps. Hopefully this will help you as well, Devil Shooter, with the timestamps. And yeah, I know that as well. I'm never going to please everyone. I know there's still going to be some people that don't like it. But again, this isn't an effort to have a a flow, like a smoother flow to the content, to the streams. Because I do feel like sometimes the streams can really get very chaotic in some sense. And that's nobody's fault. I mean, that's just a combination. That's mainly my fault, I guess, because I have the ability to keep it as organized or disorganized as I please. So I hope you guys look forward to that. Again, if you want to get a good idea of what I'm talking about, rewatch this stream or segments of it. You'll realize that I did something different. I basically talked about the topic. Today there was only one topic. Said everything I had to say. And I had a bunch of super chats, and I knew that they were about the topic we were talking about, but I made sure I said everything I had to, and then we moved on to the super chats. And I think it worked pretty well. I think it worked well. You guys can give me some feedback. But yeah, that's going to do it, guys. Sorry about that. I actually meant to say that at the beginning of the stream. So I know a lot of people are not going to hear this, but we'll talk about it tomorrow. Hit the like button on your way out. And thank you guys so much, as always, for the support. I will see you guys back here, same time, same place tomorrow. And we'll see what conversations and what topics we end up discussing. So that does it, guys. I will catch you in the next one. Until then, take care.